Welcome to Armchair Expert. I'm getting prepared for Halloween.
I see that. I hear it.
Yeah, because it's Monday.
Yeah.
And we are I'm 9 days away from the big day, Halloween. Trick or treat. Smell my feet. Give me something good to eat, Monica.
Is it 9 days away?
Yes.
Wow.
31st.
Okay.
Week from Wednesday.
Great. Well, we have another episode in between.
Armchair Expert. Did that sound Halloweeny?
Mm-hmm.
I cut you off.
You
You're
did.
A little
You
cranky.
always do.
Oh, I was already winding up my voice before you started talking.
Okay.
Sorry. Hit me again.
No, I don't remember what I was
Hit
gonna
me
say.
with your best
Oh my
shot.
God.
Well, you were just saying I didn't remember what I was going to say. You can't be mad about that. Well, it's your right to be mad about that if you
You
want.
just can't control it.
So sorry. If only I had an outlet where I got to hear my own voice a couple hours a
I
week.
know. You poor baby. You don't get to listen to your own sound.
Do you want to try a Halloween intro?
Never.
Oh, because it would include doing a character voice.
It's kind of like doing a character and a song.
Oh, sure.
It's too scary. Okay. Anyway.
Well, today's guest is not scary.
No, he's not.
He's a babe. He's a super talent.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about him kind of often on here, so this is a long time coming.
Yes. He's one of your idols.
He's one of my idols. I really look up to him. His name is Rob McElhenney, and he is one of the creators and showrunners of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's also got a new show he's putting together over at Apple. I think we talk about that a little bit. He is a mega talent. Oh, this son of a bitch was on Fargo.
Oh, I know. He was so great on it, too.
I know, but it kind of made me mad. As much as I love him and root for him, I was like, come on, man, you're on my favorite show. I want to be on my favorite show.
Don't be jealous of your friends who are doing well.
You're right.
Also, you are saying Philadelphia wrong.
Oh, wonderful. Well, he is from Philadelphia.
Okay.
And his name is Rob McElhenney, and he is very talented. Oh, that got embarrassing.
I had
How
to
about
look
this?
away.
I want to hear your blood.
What is that?
I'm going for a broke. I want to talk to Rob. That was pretty good.
Okay.
You're so embarrassed for me. Enjoy Rob McElhenney.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
Rob McElhenney, welcome. You've said that you've listened to a few episodes.
Yes.
And have you stumbled across anywhere I'm kind of going into my affection for you?
Yes. Well, with my wife.
Well, sure. But that's not the only time. It's
I think
happened.
one time I noticed with Kimmel, but you said something about me to Kimmel, and he just moved as quickly past it as he could. And I was like, fuck, that would be a great opportunity to hear what Kimmel thinks. And I did. I did hear what Kimmel
I
thought.
doubt that. What I bet happened was that was one of my first interviews, and I was interrupting quite a bit in the early stages of this. And he was probably mid-thought on something, and I interjected something about you. That would be my guess.
I will say that I heard that critique. Well, you brought that critique up that you heard from other people that you were interrupting people. I didn't notice that.
Well, what was going on a little bit is that we didn't edit the first 10 episodes or so. So when there was a 5 second pause, I would start panicking like a brand new talk show host. And then I would think, well, I better just talk.
God forbid you just edit.
Let any silence
Or God forbid
slide.
there's 5 fucking seconds where my voice isn't steamrolling everything. But I've also talked about working out with you. Someone was in here and they had mentioned your physique.
Yeah.
Like,
You really have come up a lot.
Yeah,
A lot.
I want to say it's 5+.
really?
Yes.
Definitely on the fact checks. Maybe that's why. Because I know when there was one fact check we were talking about Charlie on our
Charlie
calendar.
Curtis. Yeah, from my
Oh, yes.
perfect 10
Pin-up
calendar.
calendar. And then you were also brought up in that conversation about.
And that was in the fact. See, I don't listen to the fact checking because I like to live in the dark.
Okay, good.
I like to just assume that everything that was said was correct.
Yeah.
Even
sure,
though what I
get
can,
it.
sometimes I'm listening and I'm like, no, that's not correct. But they'll figure it out.
But I'll
later.
never find out.
Yeah, I will know.
Ignorance is bliss, as
Yes.
they say.
Yeah.
But usually when I go into my pitch about you, what it involves is that I really look up to you.
Really?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Why?
And I don't even know. Well, I have my theories on why I look up to you so much, but I really have this gravitation towards you. And I really admire you in a lot of ways. I think first and foremost, you're a man of incredible discipline. Would you accept that compliment with grace and faux humility?
Yes.
Okay.
In some areas of my life. Yes. Not all, but in some.
You know that that's one of your strengths.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's just start by saying you probably can't get anywhere at 40 plus years old, having done anything and not at least acknowledge some of your qualities.
Yes.
Yes. And focus your energy in on that.
Yes. I'm fairly disciplined when it comes to certain aspects of my life. Yes.
And work being one of them.
Work being one of them. Yes.
Yeah. And I tried to explain this to people the other day on an episode that the true heroes, like the true superheroes of film and television, are showrunners. And I don't think America generally realizes that. We think of like, oh, the director, that's somebody who must really have their hands full. But a showrunner, to explain, I'm tempted to, but you're here and you're a showrunner. So tell me what a showrunner does.
A showrunner is essentially the person who is making sure that the show happens. So he or she is generally writing the vast majority of the shows, or at least taking a pass through all of them. He or she is in the writer's room as much as he or she can be to make sure that the creative direction is all flowing in the right direction. Is in the editing room, is on set as much as he or she can be. Really, it's the last line of defense. Casting, yes. And that's the job that I serve on. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
And you've done 100 episodes at this point?
I think we've done like 160, something like that.
160.
Something like that. Yeah.
Jeez Louise. So yeah.
But I never knew what a showrunner was either. And I like some of my favorite
even
shows.
when you had the job, probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, no, I knew what a waiter was.
Right.
Because I had done enough of that. But but like growing up, I would watch, you'd watch Seinfeld, for example, and I'd go, okay, I see this name, Larry David, come up a lot, and I don't know who he is, but he's got something important to do on the show, but I don't know what it is. I just know that the show's about Jerry, and I know George, and I know Elaine, and I know Kramer, but I never really put two and two together that there was a person behind the scenes that was making sure that the show was being made.
Well, and even I was in the dark about it long enough that it made a lot of news when Larry David made $800 million or whatever the fucking number was, right? And I remember going, wait, how did a guy that was not on the show make $800 million? Or how did he make almost the same amount as Jerry Seinfeld?
That year, I remember reading that Jerry Seinfeld was the number one highest paid person in the entertainment industry that particular year, more than Oprah. And the number two person was Larry David. And I think I was the same. I was like, who's that guy? And why is he getting almost the same as Jerry Seinfeld?
Yeah, he's not been in a single scene.
No. And then I also remember, at one point being in high school and watching the show, and it felt different for some reason. And I didn't know why it felt different, but it wasn't that it wasn't as good or as funny. It just felt a little bit different. And then it wasn't until years went by and until I subsequently understood that was the year that Larry left. So he left, and actually Alec Berg took over, Alec and Jeff Schaefer took over, and Dave Mandel. And the show was just a little bit different. Not markedly so, but just a little bit different. And that was the Larry.
What season?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was like second to last or something like that. And then Larry came back.
And he came back.
Mm-hmm. And then
Do you know the behind the scenes why he came back? They just said, "Oh, this is a little bit different. Let's get Larry back."
I think he just got burned out.
Sure.
It's an exhausting job.
Well, and just think, you know how hard you work, and you do what, 10 to 13 or something?
Yeah, the most we've ever done is 15, but now we only do 10.
And they were doing 24 a year, right? Yeah.
That's an insane schedule.
Right. And
live. And they were shooting them, they were taping them live. So that's a whole different other level of pressure. Whereas we're shooting single camera, which is different.
Yeah. And I think I wonder if it was for the same reason. I didn't give Seinfeld a chance when I was young because it's what everybody was talking about. It's like what my uncle, who I wouldn't want to have a conversation, was talking about, you know, and I thought, oh, this must not be cool. It was just too mainstream for me trying to define myself as an outcast to openly admit that I enjoyed.
What were the show? Did you watch television in high school?
Yeah. In high school, I was obsessed with Party of Five.
Sure.
Donna Martin Graduates. What was that show?
Beverly Hills 90210.
Bev 90210.
Yep.
In fact, you know,
So you gravitated towards the drama.
you know, always to this day, like I will sit here. I admire the fuck out of you. I've been on your show. I've only watched 3 episodes.
Yeah.
I have almost zero interest in watching comedy. I can't put my finger on it, but I at least am comforted by the fact that I find a lot of us that are in comedy don't consume much comedy. Are you the same?
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. It was just maybe last week when I was like, oh my God, it's The Bad Place. Holy shit, it's The Bad Place.
Oh, you just...
I am like 2-3 years behind. And the only reason that I was watching it is because I know so many people associated with that show. But even that wasn't it.
Sure.
And it was because a member of the staff, a member of the staff of my current show was like, I was like basically stealing storylines without having seen the show.
Right.
And they were like, no, they did this on The Good Place. I'm like, all right, what about this? No, they're doing that on The Good Place. So I'm like, fuck, I got to watch The Good Place because I'm inadvertently stealing from them. So
and
anyway,
everyone's
watch it and love it.
Of course, everyone's going to say you stole, right? Yeah.
Yes. No, I don't watch. I watch very, very little comedy. Although I will say, because I'm working on this new show, that I've been trying to watch as much as I possibly can of what's working now. So the last like year or so.
And it sounds a little arrogant or egomaniacal to position it this way, but I guess if I had to really break down the math of why I don't enjoy it, is exactly that. To me, it's like watching algebra be cracked. Like I can see the mechanics of it so much that it's almost hard for me to enjoy. The comedies that I have fallen in love with are Master of None. Have you watched that?
Yep.
I mean, it's fucking beautiful.
It's incredible.
Like, that show to me has this like the richness of Annie Hall in a comedy. It's so romantic, that show.
I love that show. Yeah.
It's so good.
Atlanta. I've been watching a lot of
Fucking-
Atlanta. Yeah. Well, and maybe that's why I respond. And I've seen every episode of Master of None. I've seen every episode of Atlanta. And I think it's because they're so different from say 30 Rock, which is very similar to the show that I make.
Yeah.
That maybe and Community is the same way. Maybe I just want something a little bit different from what you're doing all day long.
Well, and I think you and I enjoy the same kind of comedy, or at least we set out to make the same kind of comedy, which it's
funny.
Well, no, that's secondary to me to stunts.
Yes.
But after we've got some explosions and stuff, then I really want the comedy to come out of a character. I want it to be because this person's so unique that the way they're just moving through everyday life is going to cause some problems, as opposed to the world's crazy or the punchlines are insane. It's like, no, the person's crazy. The world's pretty real, or the person's unique and the rules of the world are real.
Well, sure. That's what we've been doing on Sunny. And I think that's why it's lasted so long, is that the world is the straight man, and there are no straight men or women in the cast of the show.
Right.
The joke is always like whoever it was guest cast winds up being the straight person.
Right. Yeah. You invite people to come watch you guys be funny.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just don't, when I get home, I just don't want to, although I've been watching a lot of Veep recently, which is
again
incredible.
It's so fucking good.
Incredible.
It's the best.
What's your favorite show?
Comedy?
No, your favorite show.
Oh, ooh. Well, my favorite show of all time is Friends.
Sure.
That's my favorite.
I love
show.
that. Did you see
I'm
the adorable
embarrassed
grin
to say it.
that snuck
What?
out?
I don't know why.
It's an incredible show.
I know, but it feels it feels like I should be saying Veep, although I do love Veep. I think it's the best.
Well, no, you're supposed to say The Wire. The right answer is The Wire.
Well, for
If
comedy,
you're in
Greatest.
LA.
Well, if you're in LA, yeah. But,
Yeah.
But it's not a wrong answer.
No,
either.
no,
It's incredible.
In my top 3, but
yeah.
I'm just saying when you say you're embarrassed, like generally you're supposed to say The Wire.
Yeah, I don't know.
How about for you? Is Sopranos in the pantheon?
Absolutely.
Oh, I don't know.
I've watched it. I've watched it all the way through 3 times. And it's legitimately bad. Like there are episodes, there are actors, there's direction, there's writing in it that I feel like is legitimately bad, and it doesn't matter.
Well, that's the thing, is it's my first. It's like the first show that took itself as serious as a movie would. And I just was so in love with it. And it was like a paradigm shattering experience to watch it. And I'll never have a feeling about a show like I do about that show. Yeah, the best acting I think I've just ever seen.
He was how old? First season?
This is again. Well, now I know it's a trick. I mean, if I was being sincere, I would say I'd guess that he was 51 in the first.
He was 36 years old.
Oh my God.
I mean that.
And you can check that.
I will.
You will
sure
check
will.
that when they shot the pilot of The Sopranos. He was 36 years old.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
Yes.
But back to so anyways, swirling around and why I'm so impressed with you as a person is
Yes, let's get back to that.
yeah, because I want that to be the theme.
It's going to be a love letter to you this whole
I'm meeting with
episode.
one of my idols.
Oh, all right. Well, I appreciate that because I feel like it's going to be a pretty boring podcast otherwise. I mean, I hear, because I know you're having a thing with Mindy right now. You've been talking about.
I really want to get her.
I know, but I understand her perspective. Like
Yeah.
yes, because I am a fan of this show and a fan of a lot of other podcasts, talk shows that I feel like I would not be a good guest. I will not be a good guest. I will not be a person that I want to listen to on the show.
That's horseshit.
And that is not faux
humility. Yeah, that's
that,
a bona fide insecurity.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Thank
No, I
you
don't.
for correcting me.
Yes. No, I don't think it's an insecurity.
Okay. You think it's an accurate appraisal of your...
Yes.
No, that's horseshit because you're one of the most well-spoken people I've met. You have an incredibly interesting childhood. You have created something out of nothing. You're married to a famous girl who I happen to love. I mean, what more do you fucking need for an interview?
Now I've led it all exactly to where I wanted. That's what I wanted to hear. I needed that.
Okay. You have everything we would need. Let's go back to Philadelphia.
Okay.
I'm what, 4 years older than you?
I'm 41.
Oh, I'm only 2 years older. That helps a little bit.
Okay.
Is it interesting to you that I like you so much?
Yes.
It is.
I appreciate it.
Like
Well, I feel like you're a man. You're a man's man.
okay.
But one of the things that Caitlin and I always discuss with regards to you is that you are effusive with your emotional connection that you have with other men and your praise for other men.
I love men.
You love men.
I do.
You love men.
We both do.
Absolutely.
We both love muscles so much, don't we?
Oh yeah. Big time. Big time.
And when did that?
I also don't have any. I don't know. I have no compunction. I mean, I guess I grew up with like around tough guys, and they were always incredibly affectionate. My whole life.
Isn't
like
that
my dad's actually both my mother and my father, they came from families of 9 and 10 and respectively, and they're full of like blue collar tough men who drank and smoked and some spent some time in in other places.
Sure.
And
Uncle Mike wasn't at every Christmas.
Lots of cousins, uncles, and also just people in the neighborhood and things like that. And they kissed each other hello. That was I just remember that from a very early age. Always hugging, always kissing, always like telling me I love you. And so I just always grew up with it. I don't know if it's just like a cultural thing. It's also amongst my friends that I grew up with too. Like and they also came from similar families. I don't know if it's a Catholic thing, an Irish Catholic thing, or I don't know what it is, but we're all, I'm very affectionate with other men.
Yes. And you really appreciate the male form.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Well, some folks aren't as into it as you and I are.
I find it fascinating.
Can I just say the best thing is whenever you and I have had this moment like maybe 10 times over the last decade where I see something that's muscle related, like a documentary. And then the first thing I do is text you. And this has happened where you literally within the last 24 hours have just consumed the exact same thing.
Well, I think you were talking to Ike or maybe it was Seth about the funniest scene that you've seen in a movie in a long time. And I remember texting you saying, But I think I found the funniest scene in the history of movies, and you said I already saw it when the guy falls off the horse. It's the greatest.
Yeah. Generation Iron. But
I find masculinity hilarious.
it's really weird, right? Because you and I both can recognize the total danger of it. That it's potentially toxic and quite often is terrible. And in fact, when I'm in bars back home with a bunch of dudes jockeying for the alpha role, I can't stand it at this point in my life. Yet I'm really fascinated with it.
I find it equally magnetic. Yes,
right.
both repulsive and magnetic.
Yes, what is that? So bizarre.
I don't know. It's just it's infused into my genetic code.
Here's when I knew I was going to like you. Is Caitlin basically said, you know, I think I was one of the first people to find out you guys were dating. You and your two friends created the show It's Always Sunny, and she was cast in it. You guys got to know each other, and then you started having a steaming affair, and it was under wraps. No one really knew about it, and then you maybe came out season 2 or 3 or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. But she was telling me, oh, yeah, I'm dating one of the guys from the show. Oh, what guy? And I had met you guys, and she said Rob. And then she had a story about you guys being in a bar in Santa Monica. You had some friends in town visiting. Do you have a legal situation where you can't talk about it?
I think enough time. I think enough time has passed.
Okay, you know what? This was in Rome. This happened in Rome, and you didn't have friends in from town. But at any rate, a scuffle broke out, and you were vastly outnumbered.
Yes.
But all of a sudden, she had my full attention. I'm like, okay, you like a guy that if outnumbered and to defend his friends will go to the fucking limits. I think I like this guy a lot. That was my first, and that's terrible. I can recognize that's terrible. That's no reason to like a guy, but I really liked that about you. And I thought, I'm really glad you're going to be with a guy that will, you know.
Well, let's break that down for a second. Is it what is it that you liked about it?
I'm very attracted to courageous acts. So it's very scary to take on 5 or 6 dudes if there's 3 of you. And yeah, I'm really attracted to acts of courage. Again, probably wrongly, but I am. Can't help it.
Yeah, I've heard you tell this. You've told the story to me many times, and you told it on the podcast about the guy that threw the milkshake. Was it a milkshake or a soda at your car, and you pulled over and you went and found him. Yeah. And
I did have legal trouble.
Of course. And you can't advocate for that, but there's something about it. It's like it's safe for me to hear that story and to love it because that is there's some level of justice. Right. And I recognize that in real life, you were potentially putting your spouse in danger.
Oh, they hate it.
Yeah, of course. Yes, you were potentially hurting another human being, which I know you don't want to do.
They deserved it. But
of course. And you were putting yourself into a legal concern, but also potentially a physical concern.
And by the way, the real talk, financial. Fuck all that. I'll go do 60 days in jail. I don't want to.
Damage was done in every way. Yeah. And yet there's something intensely satisfying that justice prevailed to a certain extent.
You have nailed it.
Yeah.
Because again, when I heard the story about the 6 dudes, acting fucking tough by picking on 3 guys, I go, oh, I love they got their comeuppance. Now that's justice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really attracted to justice.
Yeah, there's something about that. And that you're living vicariously through somebody else because you know that every decision that you made in that circumstance was essentially wrong, but justice was still served.
This is why vigilantism is just not allowed because we get it wrong quite often.
Yes.
And I got it wrong.
Again, it's the attraction and repulsion that I have to men and masculinity in general.
Yeah.
The whole thing is so fascinating to me.
Do you have an obsession with dads? Because Dax has a real obsession with dads. I think I noticed it on Caitlin's episode. I was like, this is a theme. You love dads.
Yeah, his dad or her dad is the greatest.
I think anyone would probably feel that way about her dad.
Her dad is the greatest. I mean, to the point where, and I have 2 boys, but each time I assumed I was having a daughter, and I really wanted to have a daughter, mostly because of the relationship that I saw with my sister and my father, and also Caitlin and her father, which is very similar. He's just the absolute greatest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hit the jackpot with in-laws.
And by the way, he somehow navigates this. I call him Alpha 2.0. He somehow is the guy that's not going to let anyone get hurt around him, but he has no toxicity to him.
Zero.
It's really evolved.
He's a really, really sweet, gentle man, but I would not fuck with that guy.
Yeah, right. You're not coming into his house to get handsy
that's
with his.
that's the ideal. That's like that's the ideal. And I don't have the abilities that he, but I look up to him. In that regard.
Well, we're inching our way there.
Yeah, but he's from a previous generation. I feel like we should have started beyond that.
Well, now
my father's the same way. My father's incredibly pacifistic, but there's also a weird relationship that sons have with fathers, where I still believe that probably he could kick my ass, and he's turning 70 next week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You still have that in your head.
Yeah, like I believe it, and I don't know that it's true, but there's something in my lizard brain that won't allow for it.
I don't think it's true, is my hunch. But also you can. Do you remember ever deciding? Because I decided that I'm going to define myself in opposition to my father.
I think that's natural.
Okay. Well, some people seem to be chip off the old block.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it was always my experience. I mean, I certainly was exceptionally confrontational for the sake of being confrontational from the time I can remember.
Yeah.
And
why do you think that is?
I don't know. Probably just trying to define my own existence.
What birth order are you?
I was the first born, but then I had then they had a sister and a girl, and then another boy. Then my father got remarried, and then there was an older sister that moved in.
Okay,
at 13. That was interesting.
Did you were 13 or she was 13?
I was 13. I think she was 14.
Oh,
so all of a sudden,
wow.
You're 13 years old, and you have a new 14-year-old girl that moves in with you, and you're sharing a bathroom, and you're like, this is your sister.
Wow.
Yeah, this is your family member.
This is now your.
I had the same thing, a little younger, but I was head over heels in love with her.
Mm-hmm.
I was bonkers for her. Did you have a crush on your sister?
I just remember being very strange.
Okay.
And she was very attractive. She is very attractive. It was just, the whole thing was very, very strange, because there was also, it was just like thrust upon us. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
Good luck. Good luck with everything. It was all just very confusing.
A gal right in the middle of puberty.
Yeah.
And you're in puberty.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, this is really the premise for a lot of pornos. I'm very honest about my sexual proclivities on here.
Yeah.
I'm not a big porn watcher.
No.
You know, when I was younger, I enjoyed it. Like when it was first accessible at any moment on the internet, I think I had a little spell of it. But in general, I have a real hard time. It's hard for that to fulfill my fantasy, because I just have a hard time buying into the fact that they're enjoying it, the females.
Yeah. Well, what about like homemade or real life or amateur or something?
That
along
helps.
Those lines.
That
would steer you into a direction of reality.
That's a good lane to start in, probably. Yeah.
Well, Hughes told us in one of the fact checks that he thinks he's a real voyeur, like a real one, because he will sit in front of a window for 3 hours if there's going to be sex to watch.
Even the slightest promise of it. Like someone's just home. Like if I'm in New York.
Just the slimmest possibility.
Just the idea that it could happen.
I mean, anyone else would walk in, someone objective who's not already sucked into that mindset would be like, that's not going to happen. Look what they're doing. They're getting their bag ready to leave. Like they're leaving.
Yeah.
Right?
But just the slimmest chance that it could possibly happen.
So I am surprised that you don't like porn.
1% margin. Yeah.
No, but that's very reality based, right?
Yep.
Like this is
Yep.
a look into someone else's life. And
Rear
there's
window.
also,
Yeah. So if a male comes into that scenario and things get frisky, you better believe they both want it.
You certainly do.
Okay. Back to, I just want to say one thing that's interesting. Science speaking, you'll never find out whether it's right or wrong because you don't listen to the fact check. But what happens between siblings is that your olfactory sense picks up the scent of your siblings and it registers it in your brain and actually kills any potential for sexual feelings. That's how it works. It's like an olfactory mechanism. And even kids who grow up and really like they play together nonstop, generally they'll register that scent and not be attracted to them. That's why you hear these stories of parent and child being reconnected that have been separated. And there's a kind of shockingly high rate of them hooking up because they haven't registered each other's pheromones. And yet there's this crazy
attraction,
and familiarity and weird genetic stuff. It's very interesting.
That was the Korean movie.
Oh, there was a Korean movie that explored that?
One of the best Korean, that Spike Lee remade.
What's it called? Buddy, something boy?
Old Boy.
Old Boy. That was a gnarly movie.
I don't want to give anything away.
No, but
people should go watch Old Boy.
Juicy movie.
Yeah, incredible.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
Now, you went to a Jesuit school.
I
Is that
did,
right?
yes.
And again, I'm pretty outspokenly against. Is it parochial? Is that what you call it?
Sure.
Non-secular schools. But I've now sat with so many people that were Jesuit schooled, and they got a lot out of it.
I loved it.
You loved it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are the?
I loved it even at the time, but now looking back on it, I have even a greater appreciation for it.
And what are the principles that they successfully stole onto you?
A constant state of curiosity. They were always asking you to question your own belief system, to question authority, and to be exceptionally disciplined in doing so.
Right.
So you were allowed to have an opinion about anything you wanted, as long as you could back that opinion up with facts. So you could come in and say, I think this is bullshit. I think what you're teaching is bullshit. And I mean, obviously respectfully so. And then 9 times out of 10, they would stop and say, okay, why? All right, let's go down that road. Why do you think that? And if you were lazy, that was like laziness was just not something that was tolerated.
Right.
Intellectually lazy, and physically lazy, but it was just something that they just wouldn't accept.
Right.
Because they were like, look, you have a tremendous right now. You have a tremendous amount of opportunity and privilege to be at this school, because not a lot of kids get that privilege, and you're not going to waste it. And if you do, then we'll find somebody else who wants your slot. And I remember being taught that at 14 years old.
And you took it seriously, despite being a bit of a contrarian.
Well, yeah, yes, because they accepted it, and I remember that on a consistent basis.
Well, again, it goes back to justice. You felt like, you know what, this place is minimally just. If I argue my case and I'm right, they're going to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and the school has been around since 1851 or something like that. So they're used to a fresh crop of 14-year-old punks coming in there for 150 years.
Right.
So
all revved up because their new sister.
Yeah, and every one of them, yeah, sure. Every one of them thinks that they've got it figured out, and they're the angry young man, and and they're original, and they're new, and their take's fresh, and it's the same crop of 14-year-old boys that have been coming in for that long. So they were ready for me and ready for all of us. And so anything I would throw out at them, they've heard 1,000 times, and they had a great way of transmuting that into a lesson that I would then learn myself. As opposed to them.
They judoed you?
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to them teaching it to me.
It's something that I always deeply respected about my mom is best idea won in our house. Like she would let you argue with her, and if you proved your case, it swayed her. So I was always frustrated when I'd go to my dad's and like the logic would be breaking down. I'm like, no, I know. I hated that feeling of like, oh, I guess this is really just because I'm younger. Yeah, it has nothing to do with justice or logic.
Well, I remember very early on, I was small, really small. When I first started my freshman year of high school, I was like 87 pounds. I remember that because I was a wrestler. And so we would have to weigh ourselves, and everybody's there trying to cut weight to get down to 103. And I'm trying to add weight to get to 103. So I was really small. And because of that
height,
5'1", 5'2".
So you're like my wife's size.
It's teeny, yes. Yeah. And that doesn't fly for a 13 or 14-year-old boy. Yeah. So I went, instead of being like timid, I went the opposite direction and became a loudmouth. Like I just became like an intolerable asshole because I was like, this is my defense mechanism, right? This is how I'm going to survive.
Yeah.
And so that permeated through my entire life, socially, certainly with my parents, and then also in school. And I remember this one teacher who then subsequently became my favorite teacher. But very early on, I said something, said some kind of crack. And he looked at me and he said, Mr. McElhenney, your insecurity is no excuse for your hubris. And he walked away. And I was like, first of all, I didn't even understand what that meant. I'd never heard the word hubris before.
Right.
But it stuck with me. And I was like,
Well, you
I know
could
what
tell-
insecurity meant. And I know what the tone meant. So I left and I asked somebody else, like, what does hubris mean? And as it was explained to me, I'm like, this guy just basically told me, like, he just picked me apart in one sentence and laid it out. And I didn't get in trouble, but I was admonished in a way that didn't call me out in front of an entire class.
Well, because no one
abuse me.
Well, also, even if they heard, no one else would have got it.
Exactly.
Right.
And also it was very specific to me, which was like, I know why you're acting like this.
That's an incredibly precise way to sum you up in 3 words. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Obviously, he had experience.
Absolutely. So it wasn't the first time that he had met a 14-year-old punk who
Yeah.
thought he. So
Was bummed out that he wasn't 5'8".
yeah, and then at 5'8", that would have been a dream. So it was like those kinds of things that I would take to heart and then recognize, like, I would always just come back to that, where I would go, okay, so where is this coming from? Why is this behave? I still do it to this day. I say, okay, well, I'm feeling like this, or I said this, or I treated this person in this circumstance a very specific way. Why did I do that? What is that? Is that coming from ego? Is that coming from insecurity? Is that coming from because I feel lack in some way?
Yeah, because what's so crazy is that I'm sure in 9th grade, prior to him saying that, it probably hadn't occurred to you that was motivating all your behavior.
No, I wasn't.
I mean, you probably
I wasn't
knew
that
that you
self-aware.
felt shorter than everyone and insecure, but I doubt you connected the dots that then you behaved a specific way in response to that.
Yeah, or even if I did, it was in a way that I thought, well, other people wouldn't recognize that. They would just
Right.
think I'm a tough guy, or
Yeah.
that I'm the cool guy, or I'm the funny guy, or whatever. It wasn't like, oh no, it's because you are terrified, and
Right.
that's why you're acting this way.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, somebody illuminates that for you. Not only that you know it, but they know it, and everybody else knows it. So you can continue with that behavior, which I'm sure I did to a certain extent. But along the way, it's already been, now it's because it's been introduced. You can't unhear that.
Right. Every time you would act that way, you were at least semi-aware of like, oh, I'm doing that fucking thing he said I was
Yes.
doing.
And because I'm 14, 15, 16, all the way through high school, it's not like all of a sudden, oh, wow, I had this like epiphany and my life changed. It's just that began the evolution, process that I'm
Yeah.
still going through now, but at least it started at an early age.
Yeah. And then was compounding that. So you also have the unique story that your mother and father got divorced.
Yes.
And did they specifically get divorced because your mother knew she was a lesbian, or what's the order? Of course, everyone knows they're a lesbian.
Well,
What was that
I don't
specifically? Why
even,
they-
my mother wouldn't even consider herself a lesbian. If you
Oh,
asked her,
okay.
she would not say that she's gay. She would say, Mary, my stepmother, her wife of 40 years, she's gay as hell.
Oh,
But my mother is not. She fell in love with Mary.
oh, interesting.
And so
She'll say like, I'm not attracted to all women. I'm
she
in love with
said,
Mary.
well, she would say, I fall in love with people. I fell in love with your father.
Yeah.
And then I fell in love with Mary. And so in terms
Again, like Caitlin's dad, kind of 40 years ahead. It was a binary option 40 years ago.
Yeah.
You're gay or you're straight.
that's right.
And now she kind of sounds more like what a young person today would sound like.
Yeah. Well, because she grew up in a very oppressive, what wasn't oppressive in the time that she was growing up, in terms of
Female.
the gay community.
Yeah. And gay.
Yeah. In a very blue collar, Catholic section of South Philadelphia. Must have been tremendously difficult. So in terms of a timeline, it's really funny because my father, we celebrated there. I call my dad, and they're all really close. So I saw my dad and my mother. And,
Yeah, I've been at events where they're all there.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and there was a period of my dad went through a second divorce and moved in with them.
Oh my God, this is so exciting.
Yeah.
I love that everyone just stayed cool with each other and didn't fucking burn bridges. And
It goes back to my father being just an incredible human being because my mom essentially left for a while,
okay.
to go figure her shit out.
At
And
what age for you?
I was in, I must have been 9.
Okay.
My sister was 8. My brother was 6 or 7. So that, look, that was tremendously difficult for us. I can only imagine how hard it must have been for her having kids now, but knowing that it was impossible not to.
Right. She's going to die.
She's going to, it's just not going to work. And she's just not going to be happy. And therefore none of us will be happy. So she leaves for a little bit.
She's putting on her oxygen mask in the airplane before she puts yours on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which is a very healthy way to view it. I would feel very abandoned and resentful against her because I'm shallow.
Well, of course, there's a part of me that is still there that feels that, right? Like, you can't really run away from the 9-year-old that's still locked inside.
Well, I think you and I too have a similar approach with women in the past, which is like, I'm out in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of my nuclear option is like, I'm pretty good at going, I'm out and I'll just cut the cord.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, so that could have been very easy for my father to do, who was presented with the scenario, hey, I'm leaving and you got to take care of the kids because I got to go figure my shit out. So he said, what are you going to do? He said, okay. And to his incredible credit, she comes back, of course, and says, okay, I figured this out.
How long was that?
Well, that's what's strange because
we all have different
recollections of how long it was. It felt like a very long time. And of course, when you're a kid, everything feels time is expanded. So it felt like a tremendous amount of time. And I don't really know the exact timeline and we haven't really sat down to discuss it.
Right.
But my father said, okay, the kids need a relationship with their mother. Let's figure it out. Let's work it out. What do you need? What do you think is going to work? And that's what we wound up doing. So
it's very pragmatic.
Incredible. Incredible.
And so did the solution involve her staying in the house, but in a separate room? Or
no, she moved. No, she moved in with Mary. Like,
in that time she knew Mary.
Okay. So this is actually the funniest part of the story.
Okay.
So, many years later, in fact, like 30 years later, I call my dad and I say, we got to get a gift for Mom and Mary. It's their anniversary is coming up. And he's like, oh yeah, I want in on that. Cause they're close. Sure. And I said, yeah, it's a big one because it's their 30th anniversary, in March. And they're celebrating the time that they, the first time that they like fell in love, which I don't know what exactly that meant. And my dad goes, no, that's not right. And I go, yeah, no, they said it's their 30th anniversary. He goes, no, that's impossible. It doesn't. And I see him like go through like the math in his head and he's like, oh.
Wait, no, really quick. Is he finding out that it was way sooner or later?
Well, that they were married. They were still married and that the timeline for him was much different.
A lot of overlap.
Yes.
He figured
but
out
of course it's now 30 years in the rearview mirror and he thinks it's hilarious, which of course I thought it was hilarious.
Right.
My dad's been...
No, it must not... 25 at best.
That's at best.
Okay.
That this had been going on for quite a while.
Did she work with
Now again,
Mary?
these are people in their 20s. I mean, like, so it's...
In their 20s, in the 80s in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their late 20s. It's like, I can't imagine. I can't imagine what that's like.
Well, first of all, I can't even imagine having 3 kids in my 20s. I would have been the shittiest parent imaginable. Yeah. My patience, I just got patience like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So
and they were sending, and my father figured out a way to send me to send us to this Jesuit school, which was incredibly expensive.
Yeah. What did your dad do?
He's in social services.
So he's not.
So he took
crushing.
No.
He took on a bunch
He had
of
to take
debt.
on another job. He took on a second job.
What a fucking saint.
He's incredible.
I need to do. See, I'm now obsessed with his dad.
Yeah,
it just
but that's
happened.
better because normally it's women's dads, so this is good.
Well, you think there's some kind of perversion of? Okay, you think there's a perversion at play. Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, how well known was your scenario in your neighborhood, at your school? How many people knew that your mother lived with another woman?
It was funny. There was a period in which we were sort of in denial to a certain extent. It wasn't like that we were like, oh, this isn't happening. It was like, oh, mom has a roommate. She moved. We knew that they were divorced and then she has a roommate.
Yeah.
And it was just something that we didn't really like talk about. And then, and I was probably in like 8th grade or something like that. And I remember I was with a big group of my friends and I just said, I don't know why or for whatever reason, I decided this was going to be the time that I was going to like bring it up to my friends. And I remember there was a bunch of them, like eight of them there.
Well, that's a pretty big group.
And I said, I think that my mom is gay. And my one friend, Connor, said, yeah, no shit. And I was like, oh, you guys all know. And they're like, she lives with a woman. Like, yeah. And they're like, oh. And then I realized like they didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't care. And then from that point forward, I mean, that was really it. I mean, all through high school, none of my friends, and
Were
so
you
much of your
friends with
identity
the
is
toughest group in your school.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, like these were not people that, it just felt like people never really.
I've met a few of these lugs and I like all of them.
Yeah, they're good.
Like just in Minneapolis last year, I met, who's the surgeon?
Joe Dwyer. He's
Joe Dwyer. What?
Okay. So Joe Dwyer,
Was he in the mix?
So, well, my freshman year of high school, he was the 103-pound national wrestling champion.
Oh,
so I was like wrestling him.
Okay.
And he was decimating me. But he was like, he's one of the toughest people I've ever met in my entire life. That was like the thing
Monica,
about fighting.
this guy 100% looks like and this is I'm in love with this guy, but he looks like he's working on the back of a sanitation truck.
Okay.
And he's one of the best hand surgeons in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He's very successful, but he likes to party and go to football games. I mean, he's a good time child.
Well-rounded.
Yeah, he breaks the stereotype.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was always, see, the wrestlers are always the sneaky, toughest guys on the in the bar, right? Or like at the high school party.
Yep.
He was small, 103 pounds.
Yeah.
And I would see him maul people.
Sure.
Because there would be these big tough guys from other schools and they would see this little guy and they'd be like, okay, we're going to pick a fight with these guys. And we'd be like, send out your best. They would send out,
Sir
Goliath and we would send out Achilles, or David. And I'm mixing my myths up.
Okay.
And he would go out there and just slay the giant. I mean, in minutes and be
There's
drinking
few
a natty
feelings like that when you're young and you do send out your best. Ours was Jack Keefe. He was Aaron and I's best friend in junior high, and he was so unbelievably tough. And we go to this place, Camp Dearborn, and it was all adults.
This story already. This is amazing. I feel like you and I. This is so sad. We have told each other every fight story that is. I can tell 5 fight stories that you were personally in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know this story. I know because he was kind of small, but he did like an uppercut that
He knocked like a 6'3" dude out who was like 210 or something.
Yeah.
And we were 13. And he beat him arm wrestling, and then the guy wouldn't pay. And then he made fun of his weight. And then it was just lights out. And I just remember thinking, oh, one of our friends is a superhero. Like we have a superhero in the group. We can go fuck with adults. We can go anywhere we want in this town, and Jack's there, and we're safe. It was just the most.
Well, and that's a special kind of capital in high school.
Yeah.
But that's supposed to go away. And it has, right? In so many ways, but it also kind of hasn't.
Well, I get in this thing. This is one of I have an ongoing, like I just chisel away at a couple different topics in my house with my wife. And now I've ensnared Monica into a lot of these, and I just can't find any traction. And one of them is this. I try to say this to Kristen. I said, there's something about the fact that we're all living in a very civil way. We're moving around the city and we're following the rules. But at any moment, the law of the jungle can come out.
And it does from time to time.
From time to time, I'll see these little agents with these huge egos flipping a guy off at a street light and just going aggro the way they treat other people in their office. And all of a sudden this guy goes, oh, guess what, motherfucker, not playing by the rules. And he's out of his car. And I go, oh, I guess it's that justice thing. But something about it, I do like that no matter what you achieve, there's this little subtext. There's this little rumbling of the jungle still out there.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think is the biggest difference between a lot of East Coast cities and, say, Los Angeles, which is that I see a lot more aggression, from male aggression, obviously, in Los Angeles, tough guy attitudes in Los Angeles than I ever did in Philadelphia or New York. And I think a lot of that is because we're locked in our little steel box and everybody thinks that they're protected in some way. But in New York, you're not. You're walking the streets together. Yeah. And, I like to think that maybe I hope, and this is the this is the better angels of our nature, maybe, but that it's that the proximity to another human being reminds you of their humanity. And so you have a certain level of compassion or empathy for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's probably some level of truth to that, but I also think it's fear, which is, man, if I push this guy, if I cut this person off in the street, there's a chance he might punch me in the back of my head, as opposed to in a car, I can drive away real fast.
Yeah.
And so you don't have that
False
empathy
security.
and you have that false security. And so the tough guy comes out and then you lash out like a child. I mean, like a child.
Yeah. It's basically like,
And we're back to the
Twitter.
to the masculinity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to state for the record, I think utopia and where we're heading towards, like, you have 2 boys. I'm very grateful I don't have boys, because I would wrestle so hard with this stuff. At some point, I've got to leave behind the blue collar Michigan roots where you did solve things that way. I don't think violence should ever be the solution to something. Yet if I had a young boy who was getting bullied at school and it was ruining his life, it would be hard for me not to go, all right, well, here's what's got to happen. You got to punch first. Guy who lands the first punch 90% of the time is going to win. You got to be that guy. Like, it would be, I don't know how I would navigate that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very grateful that I don't have to. I don't think maybe they'll be in that scenario. But have you thought about that? Like, you have the boys doing jujitsu.
Yes. Yeah, I have them doing jujitsu, but
Does that feel like a safe compromise? Like,
yes, it does to me. I mean, but not necessarily because of like the self-defense factor, but because it gives them a tremendous amount of confidence. Because, and that's what I always have noticed. Like the people that are most ready to devolve into that toxic male are the people who are scared or the people who are feeling insecure. And so. If you're walking around with a certain, I'll tell you the people who I've noticed in my life who have the least amount of aggression out on the street and are the most secure are the MMA fighters that I know. Because
Steve DeCastro.
Or DeCastro is a great example.
He can be benevolent at all times because he knows he can mop everyone up.
Yes.
So he comes
so
from a place of
yes.
zero insecurity.
Yes, and
Although I could knock him out, but that's aside.
if you could I can't wait for him to do this because he will be listening to it.
this. He and I have been.
But yeah, so I have the boys involved in that, but it's really just about confidence building and having something physical. And most importantly, I know for me, why I do it is because it helps to transmute a lot of the natural aggression that I feel and that comes from anxiety or whatever it is. And I feel it, right? So I can resist it, but that just stuffs it down, or I can try to get it out in some way. So that's like exercise, any kind of exercise, but there's something very specific to jujitsu that is a certain level of aggression. It's very specific, aggression with a partner who's also willing, and you're not trying to hurt somebody.
There's a really cool communication that happens
Yes.
between you and your partner when you're
Yes.
rolling, right?
Yeah.
I mean, borderline spiritual. There's like a respect for one another.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you that when I leave that place, like an hour later, that is the best feeling that I have throughout a day.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's I know you and Ike were talking about pumping iron with Arnold and what he says. Yeah, it's not quite like that.
Right.
But there's something about just the release of all of that energy, and you just feel, and also that the respect that you have for the teacher, the respect you have for the gym, and also that there's none of that like mystical bullshit.
Right.
That you see in like a lot of like martial arts. They got rid of that. The Brazilians got rid of that. There's so much respect. But it's just very physical. Mm-hmm. And yes, there is a mental, it's also incredibly mental, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with like juju or spirit.
This symbol
no, it's just about does this physically work? And if it does, let's do that.
It's kind of math. It's kind of physics, right?
Yeah.
It's really a thinking man's kind of.
Yeah, well, it's like physical chess. Once you get to a certain level, which I am not nowhere near.
And
oh yeah.
Do your boys seem to have the same gravitation towards like muscles and stuff?
No, but they're young. I mean, 8 and 6, but
by 8, I was starting to really Like
were
I saw, when did you see Conan the Barbarian? That's
Yeah,
to me
around
that was like my sexual awakening.
I didn't really. I'll tell you honestly, I haven't really become as obsessed with the male form as I am now until my 30s. I think.
Oh, really?
I think so. Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know what it is or why.
You didn't love Schwarzenegger.
I mean, as much as but I wasn't as fascinated with their physique.
Okay.
As much. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting more and more juvenile as I grow older.
Sure. You're finding the time.
But just this morning, I was talking to my son. One of my favorite things on planet Earth right now is hearing my son say, "Dad, I have a question." He has so many questions. And that's so much, like I get goosebumps when I think about it because that's like so much fun.
Yeah.
Because you're realizing like, oh wow, I'm the conduit to him understanding the world right now.
Yeah.
Right now. And eventually that's going to go away. So that's a tremendous responsibility and something I take very seriously. And so I want to be very measured in the way that I'm answering him because I want to allow for him to have his own experience, but also for me to educate him in new ways. So he said, what is Cumbrarian mean? And I said, Cumbrarian, where did you hear that? And he said, I heard Mom call you Cumbrarian. And I said, is it contrarian? He said, yes. And I said, oh, that means that no matter what I say, you will find a way to disagree with it. And he started laughing. And I said, why are you laughing? He said, that sounds like fun. And I said, yeah, it is kind of fun. I said, do you think that you're contrarian? He said, I want to be. And I'm like, oh, wow. That's first of all, really incredibly cute, but also that like he's recognizing things in himself that he's like gravitating.
Well, personality traits, like
Without
that's a defining personality trait.
Yes. And what I'm noticing is that my other son is completely different, which to me is like the most, when I think about the differences between my two children, it is probably the most inspiring aspect of the human spirit that I can think of. That like, no matter who they are genetically and biochemically, which is almost completely identical because they are the progeny of two the same people, and they have essentially the same nurture as well. Yeah, that they could be two completely different human beings says so much about like I don't know, just the incredible complexity and originality of each one of us. Yeah. And that we are imbued with something that is greater than the sum of our parts.
Yeah. Like, I don't think it's metaphysical or otherworldly, but they have a spirit. Like they just have some character to them, right out of the gates. Yeah. It's really wild.
And all we can do, or at least what I feel like all we can do, is give them the tools to be the best versions of themselves and allow for them to just become whatever that particular thing is.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
There's a laundry list of things I idolize about you, but one of them is this really funny thing you did. And I didn't even see it. I had to be told about it. And then I went and looked up pictures of you. Just state your observation about what happens to actors on sitcoms that annoyed you.
I had always noticed that people would get better looking as years would go by. Actually, Friends is a great example.
Yeah,
Although that was an incredibly attractive cast from the very beginning. But, you know, that all of a sudden they're now famous and rich, and they have better diets, and they have stylists, and they care a little bit more too, and they have a little bit more time and money to. Maybe they have better teeth all of a sudden,
their
or their hair is thicker, and I just thought, well, our show has always been sort of the anti-sitcom, and beyond that, it's not realistic to the way that the characters treat themselves. They're alcoholics and they're horrible human beings, and if they lived with that kind of stress, that they would start to look terrible. And then beyond that, I will say a step beyond that, I found myself in the editing room one year and looking at myself in one of the shots. And by the way, we shoot Sunny in a very specific way to where we don't light it very well. It's kind of supposed to look crappy. That's part of the charm.
Yeah.
And so I remember watching myself and going at one point in the editing room, like, oh, I don't look very good. I wonder if we should look for a different take. And as soon as I thought that, I was instantly humiliated because that's always been the opposite of what we're trying to do. And I didn't want to fall into that trap of being, look, we all walk around with a certain amount of vanity, but I try actively to destroy that with my show and to create some level of reality with like what these people would look like. So I decided I can't do this anymore. I'm going to look as disgusting as I can for next year. I instantly thought that. And then in the off season, I'm like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this without having to go through like hair and makeup? And I thought, oh, wow. We should all do it. Okay.
I'm sure I can only imagine how this went with Caitlin.
Incredible it would be if we all put on
the whole cast
like 50 pounds and just for an entire season and not mention it at all. How bizarre that would be.
Which, by the way,
So great.
has happened in my friendship circle in Michigan at times. Like we will, I have friends, myself included, fluctuating 35, 40 pounds when we're drinking. Yeah.
Of course. So I pitch it to everybody, and DeVito was the only one that was like, all right, I'll do it. I'm like, no, not you.
Yeah.
You will die.
Yeah.
You should lose 50 pounds because that would be even more.
That's how we turned that on its head.
So everybody said, nah, I'm not going to do that. So I said, would you mind if I did it? And they said, sure. So I put on, about 60 pounds.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That's
wild. Tremendous.
Can you tell us the details of how you did that?
Yes.
You just ate everything or?
Well, originally I tried to do it as,
60.
I tried to be as healthy as possible. So I consulted a nutritionist and I'm like, how can I do this in a healthy way?
Right.
And he wrote up this like program for me. And I remember trying to, on the first
Destroy
day,
yourself program.
on the first day, it was like, okay, your lunch will be 3 chicken breasts, 3 cups of rice and 2 cups of vegetables. So I was like, all right. So I'm like trying to muscle this down. And
This
I'm
is
like,
never gonna work.
I can't do it. So I go to my doctor, by the way. So I go to my doctor and I'm like, I want to be monitored through this whole thing. Because I think it'd be funny.
Yeah.
He's like, okay. So I said, okay, he said, to be clear, this is not funny. Don't do this. This is really dangerous. And I'm like,
funny.
I'm going to do it. So help me. And he's like, okay. I said, what's the healthiest and safest way for me to do this? And he said, there is no healthy way to do it. So I went back to the nutritionist and I said, I can't muscle this food down. And I said, what's the caloric intake like of this particular meal? And he was like, it was like 1,600 calories or something. And he was like, so you can either do that or you can eat 2 Big Macs. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Sure.
So I did. So let's start doing that. So then I had Krispy Kreme donuts.
wow.
Every morning I would eat 4 of those. And then I would have, and so instead of doing it the healthy way, I did it the unhealthy way.
fun way.
The fun way.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it's not that fun because by the afternoon, I was drinking ice cream. So I would take ice cream and I would put it out. I would put it out on the counter in the morning, and then it would melt. And then I would put like weight gainer into it, and then I would drink that every day.
Go on.
And so I was drinking heavily. That was a great excuse to drink wine, and then this was the key. I found out that cottage. So it was going okay, but it was going like rather slowly. And I was just like, I felt like it was maybe working. Everyone was like, we're writing to this and it's not happening, man. And I only had 3 months to do it. So they're like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if it's going to work. And then I read that cottage cheese metabolizes really slowly in your stomach. So this particular diet was like the last thing if you eat cottage cheese, the last thing you want to do is eat it right before you go to bed because it just metabolizes so slowly so I was like, that's what I have to do. So I started eating cottage cheese in the middle of the night. So I would wake up at like 2 a.m. and I would eat this cottage cheese, and then and then 1 week later after that, I came in on a Monday, and I just seen the guys on a Friday, and I came in on a Monday, and for whatever reason, it was like I popped. They were like, oh, okay, it's all going to work. It's all going to work. This works. And I went from about like 160 to 220.
Wow.
You know, it's so rare that two people would share this experience, but I did the same thing for Idiocracy, and I didn't see a doctor. And the part where it got a little, I guess, concerning was I go to sleep at night, wake up in the morning, and I like roll over and I'm like, oh, something's under my back. What's this? And then I lift up my back and there's a Snickers wrapper and a Twix wrapper that I had eaten when I got up to pee in the middle of the night and have no memory of doing. I was like Homer Simpson walking by like, these are delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but I only gained 37 pounds. I went from 180 to 217. And did you have, like, I was like, oh, this is great. The whole time I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm doing this for a role. And then at some point you go, wait, this is for real though. I'm going to have to lose this.
Well, what I was also doing, so what happened was I was seeing a lot in my gut, but it wasn't really moving around as much. So I was like, I don't know what to do to start moving this weight around. So I went to a trainer and I'm like, I literally want you to do the opposite of like, what if I did some like powerlifting so I could get it into my ass and legs and like back and stuff. So that's what we started doing. Like I would go heavy weight, but do like 2 reps. And we would get to the point where he was like, look, I want you to, I wore a fucking, one of those step watches.
Oh, sure.
And he's like, you need to keep this number below. So I was doing it the opposite. And he's like, anytime you get to a set of steps, I want you to stop and move as slowly up the set of steps as you possibly can.
Don't get that heart rate up
under any circumstances. So
anaerobic activity is death to you.
Death.
Yeah.
So at any point where we were doing like even like the heaviest of lifting, we wouldn't do more than 2 or 3 reps of anything because it was just get my heart rate up too high. And then my doctor was like, hey man, like just recognize that that's probably good because you don't want that heart rate getting too high because we don't know if your body's too frisky.
Yeah.
So I'm going in for regular checkups and it's all, this is the craziest part, is that my blood pressure was fine. My blood sugar was fine.
That's hard to believe.
But I got a fatty liver.
Ooh.
So I was like, okay, so fatty liver. walk me through that.
Yeah, where are we at, Doc?
And he's like, well, it's not good.
First of all, again, to reiterate, not funny.
Not good. Not funny. I don't find it funny.
All right.
It's not great. And I was like, well, how long? I said, by the way, we said something about like, well, I was like Christian Bale, like Christian Bale goes from like 110 pounds in The Machinist to Batman. And he's like back and forth. And he goes, look, this guy's at Cedars and he's like, Hippocratic oath, I can't say much, but I can say this. I know Christian Bale's doctor.
Okay.
That is not healthy. What he's doing to himself is not like, you should not be looking at him as a paragon of health.
The North Star.
Yeah, the North Star. Now, in terms of his like acting ability, and I'm like, look, Doc, like I don't need to hear. It was Hollywood, like, but it's like everybody's got an opinion on, and I'm like, just don't give me your shit. Am I healthy or not?
Also, I love that you and I both are like, I probably am not gonna get to the acting level. Let me just do the physical thing.
Yeah,
like I can do De Niro in Raging Bull. I can't do the acting part, but I can minimally I can gain the weight.
Right, I can do the stunt.
yes.
So anyway, I wound up with a fatty liver, which then subsequently went away when I stopped. But losing weight was easy because I stopped. I mean, I think I was drinking essentially almost 4,000 calories a day or some 3,800, something like that a day. And to stop, I just stopped. And
you didn't have kids yet. That's probably part of.
I did.
You did?
I had a 1-year-old. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Didn't interfere or anything.
Well, that's the thing that having a child that people don't tell you, besides that it's like the most miserable experience that you could ever go through, which I try to tell as many people as possible. Like it is literally the most miserable thing you can do. It will ruin and destroy your life.
You're better at that than me. Yeah. I brush over that.
But it's true.
Sure.
And yet
it ruins the life you had.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. And I think you just have to come to terms with that. Once you do, then everything is easier after that.
But again, like look what we're circling. So Yeah, for me, losing the life I had to be on another adventure and to be curious and like it's all wrapped up in like why you'd want to know what it's like to feel to be 230.
Yeah.
Right? Like isn't there a romantic element to that whole transformation?
Sure.
Where
Well,
like,
it's just a completely new experience.
yes.
Yes.
And
It's the pain is in the holding on to what your old thing life was, or an expectation of what you thought it was going to be.
yeah.
Right. And once you can sort of, and I find that in all aspects of my life, if I can shed that, then the actual thing, whatever that particular thing is always a great opportunity to experience something new.
Yeah.
So anyway, what people don't tell you is that you're spending so much time at home that there's not a lot to do except drink,
Right.
which I like. Now, that's not something that you
Sure.
were partaking in. I loved that.
Yeah.
But I'm picturing like your 1-year-old pulling a knife off the counter and you can't even run to help because you can't get your heart rate up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just sort of let him do whatever it is that he's going to
just do
No,
whatever.
Great learning experience.
But the alcohol honestly was helpful because there's so much sugar. And so because I was gaining so much weight so quickly, my tolerance was skyrocketing too. So I could drink a bottle and a half, 2 bottles of wine a night. I was like Andre the Giant at a certain
Yes.
point where I'm just like putting booze back.
Sure.
And
Taking a fart.
loving it. And by the way, the strongest I've ever been in my entire life.
I was gonna aim you there. There was a point where you got really strong.
Yes.
And you fucking loved it.
Yeah,
right?
well,
You felt
because
like a
I was
gorilla.
always, because maybe this is again why I'm now more fascinated with men's physiques, because when I was younger, I didn't hit puberty till I was like 16. So I didn't have when all my friends were like jocks, I didn't have the ability to like create a body like that.
Right.
And then by the time I was in like my late teens and 20s, I was just smoking cigarettes and like I just didn't care.
Drinking coffee.
Right. And so then as I grew older and I was like, oh, wow, I can actually now maybe transform my body in interesting ways.
Yeah, I had this weird thing up until my mid 20s where I was resigned to the fact that like, genetically, if I just look at the Shepards for 3 generations, we have guts. That's just, I'm not like genetically, I will never have a 6-pack. But then I found out that I could, and that was like this weird breakthrough. I'm like, oh, you actually can you can turn your body into any shape that you set out to. That felt very empowering and exciting.
That's exactly right. So that was the overwhelming feeling that I had throughout that process, and then directly afterwards was, oh, if I devote a tremendous amount of time and effort and energy to something, I can accomplish that goal. I mean, for as silly as it is,
Sure.
I changed my body dramatically in 4 months, and then changed it again when I lost the weight. And because I became so strong, and I was never strong before, and I became, for whatever reason, I could bench press a tremendous amount of weight, which is so sad that I in my 30s was so proud of how much I could bench press.
Would you tell Caitlin when you got home from the gym, like what
I
you
would
put up?
Absolutely, absolutely.
yes.
And I would take like videos of it and be like, look at this, and she's like,
Honey, that's 3 plates on each side.
But one time, I was at the gym. It was in Century City, and it's right by the Fox lot. And at one point, I was bench pressing, and there was like every once in a while, like, because obviously women don't give a flying fuck, and most men don't give a fuck. But there's
a repellent,
right?
Actually,
but there are some men in there. So at one point, I like finish a set, and I'm like grunting and the whole deal, and Michael Irvin. Do you know Michael Irvin?
Football player.
Okay. Hall of Fame football player of the Dallas Cowboys, walks by and he looks at me and he looks at the plates and he looks back at me and he goes, damn. And then kept walking. And I was like, that's it. That's all I need. That's all I needed.
Although Caitlin admitted to me that there was, and I'm sure it would have expired, but that she got into it a little bit. She liked when you were a big, strong hog.
Yeah. I was
like a boar in
beefy.
the bad. Yeah.
I had like a real thick frame,
like,
and I was muscular,
like a warthog. You were just
I was like
like a super powerful fat,
like a very old obese like pit bull.
Yeah,
but ready to die. not that sinewy muscle, but like
No. One last fight left in him.
one last fight.
Yeah, it's gonna kill him.
Yeah.
He's gonna win, but he's gonna die an hour after the fight.
Yeah. So but it was an overall, and I felt great, and I think I felt great.
Can I just suggest that it's really, you and I are both pretty drawn to control,
Yes.
right?
That's 100% it. And that's
Yeah,
really
it's
what I got.
euphoric to be able to actually control what you eat, how often you work out, how many reps, how many sets, how much weight, all this shit.
Yeah.
It's just all control.
Well,
isn't it?
that's why I guess I was a little reticent to talk about discipline, because I feel like
That's a virtue when it's really rooted
yes.
in. Yeah.
And because I talked to a lot of people about it, because yes, it's looked at as a virtue, and I oftentimes will look at it as a vice, where
Well, it's selfish ultimately, right?
Absolutely. And it's about, so much of it is rooted in me controlling my environment.
Uh-huh.
And I recognize that I can't control my environment. So what I can control is myself.
And I think that's why so many of the things you'll lay out for me, like some system you've enacted in your life, it's so appealing to me always. I'm like, oh yeah, there's so many. Even when you took me in your basement, I almost creamed my gene. So like, look at this physical area you've constructed that has a single purpose, which is to like change your body, whatever direction you want to go. There's that area for that. There's this weight, that machine. And I'm like, yeah, it went way beyond just the appeal of the room. I was like, yes, this is a chamber for control. You get in here and it's like clock in.
When I walk into that room, it's hard to describe. I'll do it like in the middle of the night. I'll be like, oh, I forgot to turn the light off or something. I'll run down there and I'll feel something. And I don't know what it is. I feel it's like a rush of adrenaline, or it smells very specific, not bad or good. It's like a rubber. Yeah, that rubber smell. And I'm like, I don't know when did I and it's not like I'm a meathead, because I'm not.
No, right.
I'm certainly not athletic. It's just, it's just control.
Yeah.
It's a vice. Believe me, it's not something I'm proud of.
Wait, I want to say something really quick, because I think it's okay and healthy to recognize that a bad quality has a counter good quality, that it's not one thing, right? So you have control issues, but the good side of that is discipline, which I think is a good thing when you're thinking about your bad qualities, that if you'd removed that bad quality, you'd remove a good quality too. That most bad qualities have a
double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's a coin.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, it in the same way that like fear, I mean, you can look at it, at anything. Like anything taken to the extreme can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I mean, it's okay to have a healthy amount of fear, or a healthy amount of insecurity, or a healthy amount of, even confidence or aggression to a certain extent. It's just when it's then, there's aspects of that obviously that are going to be detrimental.
I don't think that day has passed since you showed me your basement gym that I haven't thought about it. Like we left there and I said to Kristen, that little trip may have just cost me a lot of money, because I need a little area like that in my life that's just perfectly square. Everything's in its place.
Well, and
there's a slot for everything.
There's a jiu-jitsu area, right? And so to me, and here's another thing that I love about jiu-jitsu or any like discipline like it, it's insanely humbling. So when I think about that particular space, what I think about isn't I think about all the times where I've like rolled with somebody there where I've like won. It's actually all the times that I've gotten the shit kicked out of me. And there's something really liberating about that, right? Which is like, it doesn't matter. You can try and control. I can control my own body when I'm lifting weights, such as say, or running, or trying to gain weight or lose weight. But when I'm rolling with say Steve DeCastro,
you're fucked.
I'm fucked. No matter what, I can't control him. All I can do is try to keep up.
Yeah, you broke my ribs just play fighting. I guess something interesting about failure when it happens and you can like own it in a weird way is our fear of events in our heads are so uncomfortable. And then when you actually experience the thing you're terrified of and you recognize, oh, I'm still here and everything's still fine. There is something like I had this moment when we were testing chips. Panay and I went down this wormhole. We're mid-test. We decided that we were going to test like a 40 and fail. We're like, this audience hates this. It's over. We will never get to make a movie again. We've embarrassed ourselves. There was 5 minutes of us chatting about how bad we shit the bed. And then there was about 25 minutes of euphoria where we're like, oh my God, it's over. We're done. We never have to try to get approval again. Here we are. We did as bad as you can do. There was some bizarre elation that accompanied the huge failure that I was just like, oh, I've finally been exposed for the thing I was afraid I was going to be, and I'm going to continue on in life, and that's going to to And then we tested higher than we had, and we were completely wrong.
And then you were back in. You were back in the cycle.
Totally,
they love us. Oh, I'm validated. My bucket is full once again.
You have boys. I'm now around a lot of little boys as we go to play dates or whatever. And this is no excuse for how we behave. I'm not making an excuse for how men behave. But when you're around little boys and you recognize what they're just programmed to do, it's pretty stark. It's pretty obvious. We have some wiring that makes us want to destroy everything and conquer another boy. It's just in there. And our society, thank God, has evolved so far away from our useful wiring. But you brought up earlier that you need to be able to let that aggression out. And I just wonder, as we evolve and as we should evolve, and our expectations get higher and higher of men as they should, I don't hear anyone proposing how we deal with this kind of bad wiring and this poison we have in our body, which is testosterone. Like, we're not going to get a new biology because our culture has evolved. And so isn't it a little imperative that we have some kind of outlets and we have something to do with this programming to fight another fucking group of males coming in to steal everyone's kids, you know?
Yes. And finding ways to transmute it.
Yeah.
Right. Because we can pretend like it's not there.
Yeah. That's what I'm nervous about, is that we're going to pretend that it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm doing my best to recognize that I have those feelings, and that I know that my boys will have those feelings, and that we have to figure out ways in which we can use that and change it into something else.
Judo
something
the energy.
Positive. Yeah.
Yeah. Turn it into something productive.
Yes. Because it is.
But I think people need to be thinking about what that is. Like, obviously sports and stuff's great for kids, but I wasn't into team sports. So I was out, winning glory in a car parking lot doing donuts or whatever the hell I did, or fighting, whatever the thing was. But yeah, I think we need some kind of constructive. You about to weigh in, Monica?
No, I was just going to, but we also don't know, because this is the first generation of kids that are going to have their parents really be cognizant of what they're telling their boys, I think. Like, we haven't had that up until now, where boys are being fed a very specific moral instruction on what to do with women. Right? Or no?
Well, you'd hope, but I don't know how. In my even greater fear is that you're just saying to the boy, don't ever do this, and this. And you're not going, but look, dude, I know how you're feeling. Like, from the time you turn 12 to 18, you're thinking about coming in some way or another. Right. Uncontrollably, and just to assume that this unformed brain is going to take in that info and it's going to affect their horniness or something is just,
Yeah.
I think we need a more radical solution than just, you shouldn't do this. To me, it just feels like telling young boys who are Catholic not to masturbate. Right. It's like all you're doing is setting up some scenario where they're going to be like guilt-ridden and shamed for being what they are. Again,
we're actually going through this with our son right now, where we've noticed a marked difference in his behavior when just in the way that we respond to his freakouts. So, for example, for a very long time, he wakes up, he says, I don't want to go to school. I hate it. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And we're like, all right, great. You got to go to school. Everybody's got to school. Tough shit. Like, come on, man. Like, that's just the reality of life. And so then he would react accordingly, right? Being contrarian. And he would fight along the way, but then eventually he would go to school. But just like the simple, and we wound up talking to a therapist. And at one point the therapist was like, always be on his side. no matter what, don't invalidate what he's saying. So for example, if he says, I really want to, I feel like I want to punch Leo right now. I would normally, that's our youngest son. I would normally say, you can't hit. No, that's wrong. Don't hit Leo.
Yeah.
And then it would just build and build and build. And what the therapist was saying was like, no, he knows he's not supposed to hit Leo. The best way to handle that is to say, oh, wow, that's a strong feeling. I know what that feels like. That feels terrible. That must make you feel like that I mean, obviously you're very angry, like something's making you super angry and that makes you want to punch something. I get that. And then literally walking away. And I'm like, well, how's he going to learn that he shouldn't be hitting his little brother?
Yeah.
And the therapist is like, he knows that he's not supposed to hit his little brother. What he's telling you is I feel something and he wants God, which is essentially me in this scenario, since he's 8 years old, to tell him it's okay to feel something, but what it's not okay to do is then react the way that you're pitching, the way that you're going to react. And since he already knows that because you've laid that foundation, just try that and see what happens. And I shit you not, the kid, I mean, like within a couple of weeks of just almost treating every scenario like that. I'm going to always be on your side. I am going to validate how you're feeling by saying, I understand, or even just recognizing it. I will never validate your action, right? Based on what based on how you're feeling. I'm feeling this. So therefore I'm going to do that. That's not okay. But we can't start to transmute unless we're at least validating what's going on inside of them. So I think that's what you're saying, which is like recognizing that, yes, it is not right. And it is wholly inappropriate for a lot of these men to be acting the way that we are all acting. But we have to recognize that we are certainly feeling some of these things. There are biological imperatives that are inside of us. And what we need to do is recognize that and figure out ways in which we can transmute it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Someone's probably got some strategy out there that we don't know about. So, you mean
it's not like a bunch of actors like that are going to figure it out.
Well, I wouldn't put it past us. So,
according to Twitter, we have lots of opinions.
Too many. We need to stick to acting. That's what we're told. You threw on 60 pounds.
I agree on that, by the way. I was just having this conversation on Saturday.
Okay.
I think we should stick to our acting.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
I think I agree with you 50% and disagree with you 50%. Go ahead and tell me why.
Well, first of all, I think it's counterproductive. Well, first of all, it depends on the messaging that you're trying to get through on the social media app. I certainly would not advocate for any time that it's a message of inclusion or love, or you're not alone, or I'm with you, or there's a community out there for you that is open arms, and putting that message out into the world. And so that an individual can read that and accept that. I think that's wholly positive, and I completely understand that. And I feel like that is beneficial to the world.
Yeah.
I think any kind of sticking your flag in the ground and saying, this is how I feel about any particular subject, and this is how you should feel because it's right. I think is ultimately, whether it's right or wrong, I think is counterproductive. And I think it doesn't, I think it doesn't work. I think it's as evidence over the last few years of a lot of people in our community who have made their opinions abundantly clear. And
well, almost singular, they've made their opinions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the argument, right, on the other side is you have somebody say, "Hey man, you're an actor, you're not entitled to an opinion."
A political,
I don't want to hear it. Right, yeah. Right. And I think what we tend to do is we hear that and we say, "Well, wait a second, I'm an American, right? I'm entitled to an opinion just like you." And I don't think that the criticism that's coming from that particular person is you're not that your opinion isn't validated. I think what's underlying is what they're saying is you're breaking the social contract. We're already giving you the platform. We're watching your movies. We're watching your TV shows. We're listening to your music. You're our escape from all this. Yes. Or if you're changing hearts and minds, I feel like it's incumbent upon us to do it within the platform that we have been given by said community.
Like do it
right?
in your show.
Do it in my show, do it in your music, do it on your, do it in your writing, do it in your acting. I feel like way more has been done for let's say the gay civil rights movement through Will and Grace,
Right.
or Modern Family than has anybody on Twitter telling you that you have to vote for gay marriage because there's some moral imperative. And I think it's because we have the ability to change hearts and minds through empathy, and as opposed to
story.
And story, as opposed through teaching lessons. And what winds up happening is that I think people feel like, wait a second, it's unfair that we give you this platform to tell your stories, and then you take advantage of this other platform by also telling us how you feel all the time, but more importantly, how we're supposed to feel. So do we have the right to do that? Of course we have the right to do that. But at the end of the day, is it going to actually benefit the culture, or is it going to continue to create a larger divide? And I think it's the latter.
Well, I definitely, so the part, I agree with a lot of that. My own personal reasons I used to tweet a ton of political stuff, and then post-election I stopped because I just asked myself the very simple question, is my voice needed? So I felt very compelled to be very vocal about gay marriage. And Kristen and I led rallies, and we didn't get married till it was legal. And we felt like that cause needed our voice. And I didn't see a ton of like male actors who had maybe like a dude following like I had. Like the other person I'll argue that's done more for gay rights than anyone else is Howard Stern. Because it doesn't take much for Kristen to convince her friends of that. They already think that way. Now, Howard's audience did not think that way, but they look up to him. And he had a rare opportunity to go, no, you guys trust me. Listen, this is fucking nuts. And so in that case, through his platform. Now, granted, his platform is saying his opinion, so it's already different. But I do think in general, you're right that you're not convincing a single person on the other side. It's just not happening. If you could show me some data that you are winning over people, I would be probably more in favor of it. But I just think you're further entrenching the people in your silo already and giving more ammo to the people on the other side. So yeah, I'm half agreeing with you, but yeah, there are things that I will get involved with just because I don't think anyone else is saying it. But I feel some compulsion to, because I do have a megaphone and I want to use it to say, hey, give money to kids in foster care,
Well, sure. I mean, yes. I mean, there are certain things that,
that was a low blow.
Yeah, that
was a cheat. I take that back.
Yeah, I guess I'm speaking more. I'm thinking more specifically like in political matters.
Yeah.
And I also I certainly don't think there's anything wrong with donating your time, efforts, energy, and money to causes that you believe in. Of course, I do that. We all do that. I guess I guess I'm responding specifically to Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah.
And just the espousing of your beliefs, and every day, reading how you feel, not you, but how said actor feels about Kavanaugh or feels about Donald Trump or feels about, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. Is it effective? What are you trying to do?
And the point I really agree with you on is that we have the ultimate weapon, which is the most powerful thing for humans is story. And many of us have figured out how to do that. So why not use this incredibly powerful tool? A tweet is not a story. It doesn't have a hero and an antagonist and all these things and beginning, middle, and end. So yeah, it's just not nearly as powerful. Use your big, heavy Excalibur sword and tell a story that can move the needle.
Ultimately, it just feels like it's just more effective. And then I don't know, sometimes I wind up talking to people and it feels like, well, are you doing this for them and the cause? Or are you doing it because it makes you feel better? Because it makes you feel more powerful, right? Because I feel like a lot of us feel so powerless right now.
Yeah.
And we say, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And so therefore I'm just going to espouse my belief in, because I'm
Hope that converts some people.
yeah. And that it, and even though you know that it doesn't, but it makes you feel good. You get that little response, you know, and even some of the negative response that you might get, it might like click into that.
Reward
Need,
center.
yes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The blinking bells. Well, I do want to say this season of Sunny, it's currently out, right?
Yes.
And yet again, you did something spectacular, which is this time you went the opposite direction and you got incredibly in shape.
Yeah.
Like you should be in a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure of working out with you in my far less impressive basement. And I do think I got a little contact high from your pheromones while we were lifting.
Yeah.
Because you really did it. And in fact, I first saw the physique unveiled at your pool.
Mm-hmm.
And on my way to the pool, I was like, I feel pretty good about swimming today. I'm in pretty good shape. And then I saw you and I immediately said, you've got a lot of work to do. You showed up to a gunfight with a stick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really did it. It's really something.
I went 100%. Yeah. I went 100%. Yeah. I mean,
and my favorite part, I don't know how to talk about this without kind of spoiler alert, spoiling it. But the genius behind this is, in my opinion, is how little you're going to show it.
That's right. Yeah. Once.
This is such a comedian's joke. I don't know that everyone will find this as brilliant as it is, but
I'm
you did minimally 6 months worth of hardcore, not just bodybuilding, but training as well.
Yes.
And we won't say what kind of training because that would give it away.
Yeah.
But you dedicated 6 months of your life to something to ultimately be displayed for what?
2.5 minutes. Yeah. I mean, well, look, it was all born out of the same. It was born out of the same kind of fascination that I have with actors and the male physique. And I just got to a point where I was like, I feel like every movie and television show I've seen now, men are taking their shirts off like normal guys. You know, not, of course, look, Hemsworth or whoever, you're playing Thor or you're playing Superman or something.
That top's got to come off.
I'm talking about the guy who's like a chicken delivery guy, you know, in the movie.
You're a mechanic.
And he knows, the actor knows, oh, I'm having a love scene, so I'm going to get in incredible shape.
I'm guilty of this.
Okay. The truth is that there's not a human being on earth that has abs unless they are working towards getting abs.
Right.
And generally, chicken delivery guys don't have abs.
Okay.
Generally, right?
Yeah. All those chicken delivery guys.
Yeah,
out there.
or mechanics. Let's just say.
Yeah.
I'd have never met a mechanic with abs, unless he was really going for that. Right, going for that look. So if it's not a character trait, a guy that's like a gym rat, he shouldn't look like that.
Right.
And I just
like a gymnast.
Yeah, and I feel like I've been seeing it a lot, like a lot. So I wanted to do my version of it because I thought it would be so stupid to do something like that. And generally, when you see it in the movie, you see the guy with his shirt, his physique is like a huge part of it. So you see him and he looks great for the entire movie. And I just thought it'd be funny if I did that and then I showed off in the first like 2 minutes. The other characters think it's really stupid and they don't really even get it. Why did you do it? And I'm like, I don't know. I did it for you. And they're like, why?
I did it for you.
And I'm like, well, how can we use the body? And they're like, we can't. Put your shirt back on. And then I put my shirt back on and then never take it off again.
Oh my God.
And so that, I don't know. I just feel like that would be funny. And that's what I'm doing.
It's tremendously funny. And have you gotten any response on Twitter? Like, is my hunch true that it's probably 90% of the response so far is guys?
All men.
Isn't it so depressing?
All men.
It's so depressing.
All men.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't heard.
Have you heard from any women?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A couple. But I think mostly it's like, it's too much.
Oh, that's what you're hearing from women.
Well, I went for a very specific body.
Right.
Okay. Well, I will say that I hired the greatest guy. Aaron Babayan is the.
We love Aaron.
Yeah. He is the trainer he's the Hollywood male body trainer.
Yeah.
And
Channing Tatum. If
Yeah,
you ever
he-
loved Chan's
yes,
body,
he does Magic Mike.
Aaron gets all over that body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosling. He does all the, he does that. He does all the guys. So and he's also a friend of Steve DiCastro, aforementioned. So I sit him down and I'm like, Aaron,
Aforementioned. It's got a
Yeah.
little boner on
Yeah,
that.
you like
Nice
that?
wordplay. Okay.
Those are the things the women comment on, by the way.
he said, I hope I used it correctly.
You did.
Okay, we'll hear it in the fact check.
Yeah.
Please look it up. So I said, okay, Aaron, there's a very specific body that I want to go for because I'm trying to do something very specific. It's the male body that I want. He goes, Brad Pitt Fight Club.
Yeah.
I said, how did you know that? He goes, literally every guy I've ever worked with, every guy says, I want Brad Pitt Fight Club.
Yeah.
And he goes, go back and watch Brad Pitt in Fight Club. He is not big. In fact, he's incredibly skinny.
Yeah.
He's so skinny.
He's so lean.
He's so lean. And it's like his
gorgeous.
frame. It's like he's got a
got a
perfect
great frame, anyways.
Right. So he goes, but here's the thing, man. Brad Pitt looks like Brad Pitt, right? And he's like, so we're gonna do this, and like it's just gonna be your body, right? Like it's gonna be a version of your body. So I said, okay, great. So I'll go for that. And I thought, man, that would be really funny too. Is like even if you were to get Brad Pitt's body, you still don't have Brad Pitt's face.
No, in fact,
Exactly.
you almost need his face to pull off that body. It looks preposterous.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've been guilty of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I thought that's even funnier is like that if one character, if I'm like, but don't you see, put it side by side. I have the same body as Brad Pitt. So therefore I look like Brad Pitt. And they're like, Mac, what about the face, man?
you
can't-
forgot the most important.
Literally
piece of the
the
Brad
most
Pitt pie.
important part of his body is his face. I'm like, well, kind of, no, not kind of, not even close.
Right.
Anyway, I went for it. Honestly, when I talked to my doctor about this one, because I said, oh, this is like a better version, because I'm going to be healthier. And he's like, this isn't necessarily healthy either.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
poor
You're
doctor.
changing your body in very short amounts of time. It's not necessarily great. Like it's not, we want to make sure we're monitoring your
Although
heart.
they say starving for a period of time it promotes longevity, so I might disagree with your doctor.
I don't think the concern was the
caloric
decrease in
reduction.
caloric intake. I think it was the dramatic increase in heart rate that it take to create that in it was really like 3.5 months. And so anyway, I was monitored through that as well, and it turned out like it was all right.
Yeah.
But I definitely felt better when I was fat.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember when this all concluded and I said to you, are you going to keep up this regiment? And you're like, it's tempting because you're moving through the world and you say people are responding to you differently and you're 40 years old. Isn't that bizarre to be inhabiting a new body that gets just people can't resist. They're having a reaction to your physical presence.
Yes.
That's involuntary.
And that they're vocalizing. So I had the same thing when I was fat, but it was no one was saying it. So I would never, because it was part of the experiment. And what was fun for me was that I wasn't telling anybody why I was doing it. So I would see people I hadn't seen in a long time, and they would sort of like be like talking to me, and like I got the sense of what it might feel like to be a woman.
Yeah.
Who was like well endowed or something like that they were like looking down at my body as opposed to my eyes, because they're trying to like sneak a peek of what's going on.
Sure, what's happening.
With it. And then I'm like, oh yeah, like women know.
Yeah.
Oh, right. They can see. I'm watching you watch my body,
Yeah.
like, and so, and I would be like, yeah, things are good, and they're like, oh, wow, he looks terrible. He's so fat. But when I got in really good shape, it was a point of conversation with every person that I would talk to. Right. And then it would instantly, I kind of felt like, and I can't say for sure what it's like to be in recovery, but I can say that my friends who are in recovery, I notice that a lot of people will come to you with like especially if they're drinking or you're at a bar or something, they'll come to you and be like, oh man, I know I'm drinking too much. I got to maybe like get it under control or whatever.
Sure.
I I would hear from almost every single person in my life. They would come up, they'd be like, oh man, you look great. You look like you're in pretty good shape. And I really got it. What are you working on? Like, what's your routine? Because I really got to get to the gym. And
Sure.
I've thought about maybe getting into shape, and I'm like, I don't care. You guys get into shape or don't. Like, but how did you do it? I'm like, I run 3 miles a day. I work out 5 times a week with a trainer. I eat right. I mean, no secret. Well, but this was what was kind of cool about it too, working with Aaron, because Aaron does this for a living. He's like, things that in real life, like aspects of your body in real life, that you would think traditionally are what like look cool in a male physique, don't necessarily play on
Camera.
film. Yeah, on camera. I.e. Pitt. Probably 100. He probably weighed like 150 pounds in that movie. He's so skinny.
Yeah.
He's like, really, it's not about size. It's about symmetrics, right? And so creating the right frame. I can't believe we're talking about this in such great detail. This is exactly why I did it in the first place, because this conversation is so fucking lame to me.
It is.
But anyway, Aaron was like, this is what you want to do, is build this and build that, and don't worry about this. And the first thing he said to me, which broke my heart, was, we're not going to do any chest.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, the chest doesn't matter at all. And I'm like, that's my thing. I can bench press so much, Aaron. And he's like, I don't care how much you can bench press. I'm like, but this is how I impress people. He's like, no one is impressed by that. I'm like, Dax is impressed by that.
Oh, it drives me nuts. You can
But
bench
you know
press
what I
more than
like
me.
about this conversation is it debunks this new notion that men don't have body image issues.
Oh, I 100%. I have
'cause it's real.
dysmorphia. I'm obsessed with it.
But we don't give very much credit to men's body issues, but they're real.
Well, that is what's funny is we're very well aware of the way that Hollywood does obscure or fuck up women's expectations of their body. But every little boy is playing with a G.I. Joe doll.
Right.
It too is.
The same
They have the exact same proportion as Schwarzenegger did. You know, like, you definitely, as a little boy, you want to grow up and look like, you know.
Yeah.
Something you may not ever be able to look like.
So to me, it was fulfilling. It was satisfying insofar as that I could justify it all the way through. I was doing the most vain thing I could do, right? Which was like create this like perfect male physique. And I was getting all the benefits of that, but also I could justify it all the way through by saying, I'm making fun of this.
Yes.
Right. So that and Caitlin's like, really?
Yes.
Are you? And Charlie was like, why are you doing this, man? Is this actually like because you're making fun of it, or because you want to look like this? I'm like, if I'm being 100% honest, I don't know, but I can't extricate myself from the reality of the situation. So,
well, I can say exactly what happened. You started off in on the joke.
Yeah.
And then you ended not in on the joke.
And that's what makes it even funnier. Because I, like I said to you, like there is something intoxicating about looking better and feeling better. And even though I was like, oh, I'm going to go, because of this other show I'm doing, I'm like, I'm going to gain the weight again. I'm like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah. There is something about it that feels good.
Yeah. And then it's something inherently, I'm just competitive. And so one of the things that would help motivate me was being like, okay, you do the same routines as like Channing or Ryan. And it'd be like, okay, all right. It was like this, like pull up, push up, squat routine, right? And he'd be like, okay, well, like Chan does this in 25 minutes, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna beat Chan. Like if I can beat Channing Tatum, then therefore what?
Yes.
It's still the same problem. I still don't look like Channing
Well,
Tatum.
I was just gonna say, is like, we're really just doing this because we are stuck with these fucking faces.
Exactly. I'm never gonna look like Channing. I'm never gonna look like Brad.
No, but you're a babe. So don't be
I was
too
for
worried.
a short period of time.
Yeah. Well, Rob McElhenney, I hope you'll come back, because I'm also curious how you're so seemingly self-actualized and evolved, yet you don't, to my knowledge, you're not in a 12-step program, and you don't do regular therapy, right?
No.
Yeah.
But I have
I guess it's this fucking Jesuit thing, maybe.
could be.
Could be.
We didn't get a chance to talk about Kate. I feel like I talked about myself too much.
Well, that was my
We didn't
fault.
talk
That's
about
because I'm
Caitlin.
obsessed with you. But yeah, before you go, let's just say that one of the loves of my life is your wife. She's so spectacular.
Incredible.
You really got lucky.
Oh, a grand slam.
Yeah.
A grand slam.
Yeah. really just fell into your lap too.
Yeah, she auditioned for Sonny.
Yeah. You're one of the examples I use when I say, well, people should be able to date in the workplace. What are we saying? We can't not have people. Well, how the fuck else are you going to meet somebody?
Yep. Well, we wound up with 2 children because of it. And
Yeah.
I mean, I look up to her. She's changed my life in too many ways to count. Somebody who is so singularly good at something that is just intoxicating.
Well, yeah. So this is what I was going to get at, is that you're a tremendous comedic writer and you're a great comedic showrunner. You on a stage next to Caitlin, she's going to mop you up.
Blow me away.
As a performer, she's
Yes.
just infinitely better than you, right?
Yes.
As I would say about my wife.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, I would say that about every member of the cast. I mean, I never thought of myself as funny. This was never my intention. I did not want to do this.
Right.
And I just sort of fell into it and then surrounded myself with incredibly funny people. And Caitlin is, to me, the funniest woman in the business.
I describe her, as Julia Louis-Dreyfus. To me, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is the number one because she can pull anything off. I believe anything she's doing.
Fact
and
check.
she's
It's not Louise.
I know.
Okay.
Trust
What
me,
is
I
it?
know.
It's not
Julia Louis. Dreyfus.
Louis.
Yeah.
Julia
French.
Louis.
So we just did it right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Julia
Real-time fact
Louis-Dreyfus.
check.
Real time fact check. Yes. She's incredible.
And I think of Caitlin. I told her when she was on that first episode of the Mick, I was like, forget it. If you turn her loose, she can do everything.
Yeah.
And she's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I remember being in high school and falling in love with Elaine Bennis, you know, and because she was just so, she was just so original and so funny, and I'd never seen anything like that before. All due respect to the cast of Friends, who Lisa Kudrow is incredibly funny. It was just something that that Julia Louis-Dreyfus
There's a confidence.
that was doing on that show that I was like, I fell in love with that idea. And then I never really thought about it again. And then I met my wife and I was like, just watching her do, and we were friends, you know, for a while as we were castmates, you know, on the show. And I would just watch her and just be mesmerized by somebody who is just so singularly great at something.
Yeah.
And so confident. And she has that thing where she just never, she is constantly trying to get better and questioning the decisions she's making and questioning whether this is the right path or questioning, but she's never questioning her own ability.
Right.
She knows she can get there. It's just, what's the path to get there?
Yeah.
And that's so attractive.
Yeah.
And she's also incredibly, you know, compassionate and empathetic and
A great mom.
forgiving and just a great, just
Yeah.
everything that I want to be.
Yeah.
I mean, she fills in so many of the emotional gaps that I have and deficiencies, and really has helped me and continues to help me and will continue to help me be a better person. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you find a better partner than that?
Yeah, you got to have a partner who's crushing some areas of their life that you're not, so you can aspire to kind of. It's good to live with an example that you can grow towards, I think.
Yeah. I mean, wake up every day and look at this person and say, I want to, if I can be more like her in so many ways. And
Everyone
it's like
around me will be happier.
Yes.
Yeah. It'll be less stressful.
That's right.
For everyone
The world
else to
will be a
around
better place. Like my immediate world will be a better place if I can be more like this human being who is directly in front of me.
Yes.
So it's like this guiding light of
Yes.
principle that
who I love to dismantle with logic because that's not her strong suit.
No.
Right.
Well,
like think how many
okay.
arguments we'll win.
That's
I'll
right.
win these arguments and I'll leave and I'll go, oh, I'm right. But somehow she's still a better person than me. So
That's
who's
right.
fucking right?
That's right. I will, we'll have intellectual, right? Like, well, because that's how I'll feel superior, right? Like
Yeah.
I'll bully her into a corner intellectually and be like, okay, now what do you think about that? And she'll say, well, I suppose that you won.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, right. But how does that, you know? And she's like, do you feel better than that? You've diminished me intellectually. And I'm like, I feel worse. And she's like, then I guess I won. She has I'm sorry, I'm taking up too much of your time.
No.
She had she has this wonderful ability to win a fight every time
Oh, yeah.
by taking the higher road. But her higher road is is really like devious and manipulative, right? So we'll be in a fight and I'll think, okay, she's going to tell me to go sleep in the other room or, get the fuck away from me, or, she's going to be miserable. And, we have this thing where in our bedroom, I like it. It's just very stereotypical. I like it freezing and she likes it much warmer. Tropical. So this just happened not that long ago where we were in this big fight and I'm like, fuck you. I hate you or whatever. This is miserable. And she goes up to the room and I'm stay downstairs and I'm stewing. And I'm like, oh God, I got to go up there and, she's going to be hot and pissed and I got to go make up or whatever. And I go up there and the room is 67 degrees. And she had turned it all the way down to make it perfect for me. Right. Which is really sweet.
No.
Which
But
is
it's a move.
a move. That's
It
right.
is.
But my heart like melted because I was like, this human being did something kind for me, which is incredible. But also she completely outwitted me in every way.
Yeah.
Like checkmate.
Jedi'd you.
At Jedi Knight, and then because of that, I have so much more respect because she's winning. She's winning in every aspect, emotionally, intellectually. I mean, in every way.
Yeah, you're
strategically
grunting around.
Yeah, like an ape.
Yeah, knocking this door down and that.
Good squatting.
She's above,
315,
watching you move down in the basement, putting plates on. Well, Rob McElhenney, of course you were wrong. You're a great guest. You're one of a handful of idols I have, and I hope you don't do anything to fuck up that status.
God, that's a lot of
pressure.
That's
good.
A lot of pressure.
Wow.
That was my goal.
Well, I appreciate it. I love you too. I love our time together. I love talking to you. Thank you for having me.
Oh,
I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, you'll come back, and we're gonna do a show where we do like Deca and Tren with all these different fucking steroids, and let's get jacked,
beefy, man.
Let's get on a couple of horses at the pinnacle of it, and just get bucked, and just shred. That's what no one takes into account. Is like, yeah, you can put on at any given time. You could put 60 pounds of muscle on. Your tendons aren't getting any different.
No.
Same tendons that'll be holding the 60 extra pounds of muscle. The Stallone movie, Expendables. I'm like, yes, the older guys, they've somehow managed to stay fucking jacked. But if you notice, they're not moving quickly anymore.
Yeah.
So they're still imposing, but there's no sprinting anymore. The fights are very slow and methodical because those tendons just aren't getting any healthier.
No, they're ready to snap it anymore.
We're going to have to think about it.
So why you could beat up your dad?
Yeah, I think so. I think I could probably, at this point, I could take him.
Yeah. All right. I
Thank
love
you.
you. I love you
too.
Come back.
Thank you.
And now my favorite part of the show, the fact check with my soulmate, Monica Padman. Everyone was fact check finding. Hiya! Monica was fast as lightning. And we were fact check finding. Monica was fast as lightning.
I loved that
Another
request.
yeah, another armchair request.
I have a question about these requests.
Okay.
Are they, when they request, are they telling you what to say?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. In this case, yes. They took the time to actually write out what lyrics I should sing.
I thought they did such a good job.
They really did. Predominantly, they don't do that for me.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
and that's why so many of them stink when I do them. Because it's like I'm preparing.
Yeah, you're doing it on the fly.
I'm doing it on the fly.
You're not really checking to see if the syllables match. Or,
No, the rhythm's there. None of it.
No.
It rhymes anymore. No.
No.
I'm only a human.
Well, this person did a great job.
They really did. I mean, the part that they killed was Monica was fast as lightning.
Yeah.
Everyone was fact check finding. Monica was fast as lightning.
Yeah.
They even added the hiya. In fact, let me just.
Wow.
This is from Anthony Maldonado. Maldonado. Yeah, on Twitter. Anthony Maldonado. Thank you. Thank you for
Anthony
that.
Maldonado.
Oh my God! There's even he even included a video with the lyrics. I can't touch it now because it's screen grab.
No.
Yeah, this Aunt Tony really thought this out, and I thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony the Tiggy.
You know, I'm nervous that I know this person.
Really?
Because someone in my high school's last name was Maldonado, and now I can't remember what his first name was.
it
It was
Tony?
Mark, so no, it's not him.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You sure Anthony doesn't go by Mark?
He could.
A lot of people named Anthony go by Mark.
That's true. It's a common nickname.
very common.
Do you understand? You blew right past it in the intro that you're saying Philadelphia wrong.
You know, says you.
Well, no. Says facts. Says the truth.
Says facts.
Says the truth. And says spelling.
Okay. Tomato, tomato.
No.
Philadelphia. Philadelphia.
I guess I'm like
That's so
wondering
snooty.
where it came from. Why
I think
you
everyone
say-
says Philadelphia. No one says Philadelphia.
What are you saying?
What do you say, Rob?
It's Philadelphia with the E.
Oh, forgive me for breathing. I'm sorry, everyone in Philadelphia.
You're testy today.
I am.
Rob.
Yeah, Robbie Rob.
Not Wobby Wob, a different Rob.
Rob McElhenney.
Yeah. He has a hard last name to spell.
It's nearly impossible.
It's incredibly hard to spell.
Mhm.
I've spelt it wrong a lot, and I'm very good at spelling. Brag.
Number one.
Okay, so he said he thinks there's been 160 episodes of It's Always Sunny. There's been 144.
Well, but you know what? I know he probably has 16 in the can.
No, this includes the 10 for this season.
Also, though, okay, just one more attempt to defend him because I love him so much. They did. I think they ordered 3 seasons at once. So in his mind, he probably knows they're doing 160. I don't know. That's my guess.
Maybe.
But anyways, 140. What'd you say?
144.
That's pretty darn good, guys.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty impressive.
Want me to do some quick math? That's 72 hours of content. 72 plus 72 is 144.
Oh, is it a half hour?
It's a half hour.
Got it.
Legal drama.
Okay, so you said Larry David made $800 million. His net worth was rumored to be $800 million.
Okay.
So it's not like that wasn't his like.
He didn't open his
gained
mailbox and have a check inside that said 800 million.
No, he didn't earn $800 million.
Although
from
they
Seinfeld.
do get checks like that because the way they sell syndication is they'll sell like a 5-year block
Yeah.
of syndication. And some, like I remember the one I remember was 70s Show. The first cycle sold for like $780 million. So people did get checks for hundreds of millions of dollars.
But he was on Howard Stern, and Howard asked about that rumor, and he said the reports are insane, and it's nothing like that. It's not nearly that amount. He wouldn't say exact numbers, but he said it's so untrue. Half of it went to his divorce.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Do you think he has a lot of money though?
Yes, I think Larry David has a lot of money.
Okay, great.
I do. But it's good for me to say that because 800 million is a rumor, and he is saying that's not true.
Yeah, but he's including a divorce.
Well, his net worth is how much money he has.
Yeah.
And so he is not
But I
worth
think the
that.
rumor that I heard was like he made 800 million on Seinfeld.
Right,
which would
that's not
still
true.
stand.
No, that's the whole point is what I'm saying. He didn't make 800
Oh, I thought
million
you were
on
saying Howard said you're rumored to have $800 million. And he said, that's crazy. That's not even close to it. I gave half to my wife,
Your net worth is rumored at 800 million.
is what he said. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was the rumor. It wasn't like the rumor was he made that on Seinfeld.
The rumor I heard was that he made $800 million on Seinfeld.
Okay. But that's not the universal rumor.
I'm just saying
that
we
was going
both
on.
could be correct right now. So he could have made $800 million on Seinfeld. He could have given half of that money to his ex-wife, and then Howard could have said, "Your net worth is $800 million." And he'd go, "No, that's not even close to what my net worth is because it's half of that." Because he gave half to his wife. So all things could be true. His net worth could be way less.
I saw nothing confirming that he made 800 million on Seinfeld.
Oh, okay. Great.
Okay, so he left after the 7th season, and then he came back to write the series finale.
Larry David.
James Gandolfini was 37 when the pilot aired of Sopranos.
Oh, wow. Okay.
37, not 36. Sorry, Rob.
Right. You know what he might have been saying? You just said he was 37 when it aired.
Yeah.
He could have been 37
When they shot it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all. That's all I'm saying.
I know. Okay. So you said the reason that we aren't attracted to our siblings is due to some olfactory sense. And there was a study in 2007, it looks like, about this. But that was with animals. They tended to avoid mating based on recognizing specific smells, but they couldn't really attribute that to humans. So there's this Westermark hypothesis, which is a Finnish sociologist who first noted in a book published in 1889 that children reared together do not often end up being sexually attracted to each other. So he was like the first person to say that. And there's different hypothesis of why. And these different cues, like if you saw that person getting reared by your mother, then that's like a cue. That's a cue to not be attracted. But then they said that it would only work for a first sibling. So they said, but for younger siblings who would have no opportunity to make this observation, another cue might be the amount of time spent living with another child.
Yeah, but what's interesting now, granted, I wasn't in the scenario for long, but I definitely was attracted to my stepsister. And I observed all those things. I observed my mom caring for her.
But not like nursing, not like from infancy and intimacy.
She didn't nurse my stepsister.
Right. I think that's an indicator of why this does make sense, because that person just came into your life. You didn't see them. You didn't grow up with them. And then all of a sudden they became attractive to you.
Well, even I was attracted to her at school, and then she became my stepsister.
Oh, yeah. This is nothing like this.
Yeah.
This is no. In the case of the Israeli kibbutzim, collective farms, kibbutz.
Kibbutz.
Didn't Seth say is that
Lived
what
on
he?
a kibbutz.
Yeah.
His parents lived on a kibbutz.
Kibbutz, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, children were reared somewhat communally in peer groups based on age, not biological relation. A study of the marriage patterns of these children later in life revealed that out of the nearly 3,000 marriages that occurred across the system, only 14 were between children from the same peer group. Of those 14, none had been reared together during the first 6 years of life. This result suggests that the Westermark effect operates during the period from birth to the age of 6.
Also supports my olfactory theory I read. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they were around all these people, so they imprinted, even though they weren't biologically related. They imprinted the people they were around nonstop.
Right. So, yeah. So it says
family members.
But it might not have to do with this. It very well might have to do with the smell, or it just might have to do with what they're saying, proximity. When proximity during this critical period does not occur, for example, when a brother and sister are brought up separately, never meeting one another, they may find one another highly sexually attractive when they meet as adults or adolescents, according to the hypothesis of genetic sexual attraction.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of pornos that are out there.
Sure. Why not? What's your
look at the data?
Do you have a fave? Can you tell us?
Yeah, I think I've talked about it on here.
I don't think so.
I have. I said I'm not generally interested in pornography because I can't buy into the fact that the women are actually.
Actually, you say it on this episode.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's bonkers.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
I know you don't really like porn, but do you have like a go-to that you like a video? I mean.
Oh no.
Do
There
people
was
do that?
one. There was a video at one point I would circle back to because it reminded me of a sexual encounter I had that I liked.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it wasn't really the video itself as much as it reminded me of a real event.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do people do that? Do people have a video that's like their video, like their
friends.
Goodwill Hunting,
Right.
where they can watch it in their head and stuff?
I can't really speak for. I don't think so. I think it's all about like quantity.
Okay.
Because it's just the way it is
Diversity.
now. Like in the old days when you were younger, yeah, you'd get your hands on one or two porno tapes.
Right.
You know, VHS porno tapes.
So then, so they probably
You had a
did.
favorite tape, and then you certainly had a favorite scene in the tape. So yeah, you would watch that scene.
Over
There's
and
one that
over.
I had seen, a couple hundred times.
But now with the internet,
It's just a glut of
Yeah.
images and
Wow.
general degradation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough.
Okay, Steve DeCastro comes up a lot in this episode. Do you want
As
to
he-
tell people
as he
who
should.
he is? Because no one, you guys just keep saying his name, but he's just
Really?
yeah.
So Steve DeCastro is a stunt man, stunt coordinator, and director. And he stunt coordinated Hit and Run, and he stunt coordinated
Chippies.
Chips. But he also acted in Brothers Justice,
Yes.
my first movie. He beat me up.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and I hated having to pretend I was that much of a wimp.
You did.
I did.
Well, that leads us to our next
Point.
point. We're walking through the forest. Look, another point. Oh, this cherry led me to the cherry bush. This cherry bush here. Yeah, masculinity.
Oh, right. This would be a great time to bring up the movie we watched.
I'm going to because I forgot, but when I was listening back, it's a lot of conversation about masculinity and men and bodies
Maleness,
and
yeah.
yes, yeah. And we had just watched
The Mask You Live In.
The Mask You Live In, a documentary about masculinity and where it really comes from and why we have societally this obsession with men.
Femininity and masculinity. Yeah, and how much we just beat it into little boys' heads.
And girls.
Yeah. But
Everyone.
the masculinity one, yeah, or maybe someone's beating it into girls' heads too. But
Well, I think that's the point is everyone is falling into this trap that men should be this, boys should be this, girls should be this, but the girls are also falling into the trap that boys should be this.
everyone's fallen into it.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the first things in the movie that was really compelling was a psychiatrist, clinical psychiatrist, saying, we love to focus on the differences between men and females. And you really look at biologically speaking, it's one chromosome. And if you give them broad psychological tests, you find that there's 90% overlap in the way we think.
I re-rented the movie today so I could find that exact statistic. I don't think he says anything about a chromosome. Oh, you mean just the gender chromosome?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes. Yes. But the study is these psychological tests on 50,000 girls, and it results in a bell curve, and then they do it with 50,000 boys. That also results in a bell curve. And when you superimpose those two, it's a 90% overlap. And it's just these tiny shoulders at the edge. And those are the places that we choose to hone in on as boy and girl.
Yeah. That
really
we're like
interesting.
vastly more similar than
Yeah.
we are different. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But what was really funny is we were watching it and they basically outlined like the 4 or 5 ways that we prize masculinity in this country. And immediately we're all like, oh my God, Dax is the biggest cliche ever. It was like sexual conquest, boom. Make money, boom. Fighting, boom.
Yep.
Excessive use of alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
Boom. It was like any way I could show I was masculine, not having a dad around to let me know I was.
Yeah.
I was racing to prove myself in that way.
You did check all of the boxes.
All the boxes.
I was really proud of you for
Acknowledging.
it and realizing it. I really was. Because I was wondering if you were going to.
How could I have missed that? I mean, everything they described was like,
I know, but it's evolved to see when people are pointing out something negative to see that you have fallen into that.
oh, sure. Yeah, what is funny is I feel no shame or guilt over it because that was like, that's the roadmap I was given. And I was like,
Yeah.
I want to achieve this standard. And I think I do too. He has a great awareness of this paradox that he hates toxic masculinity and he's super drawn to it.
Yeah, he finds it fascinating, he says, but he was clear to say that he thinks it's crazy and that it all needs to be like transmuted into a different thing, which I like. But it is embedded in our culture, and it's why earlier you said You said something about man's man building
Yeah,
stuff.
no, you gotta.
Yeah, because that's exactly it. This is exactly what we do. And we say a man's man and this, and it just like leads to these crazy expectations that aren't real. And the documentary is so good.
It's really fantastic.
Everyone should really, really watch it.
I mean, especially if you're raising a boy.
But I think, yes, of course. If you're raising a boy, yes. But also, if you're just a person in the world, you should watch it because we're all part of it. We're all part of the problem.
Yeah, but I guarantee if you're raising a boy, you'd find that daily you're reinforcing those things, completely unaware that you're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's in our advertising. It is everywhere from like day one.
Mm-hmm. Before you arrive, they already bought you a blue blanket or a pink one.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Oh, okay. And then one other thing, sort of tangential to this. Rob made the connection to if you're fighting, need for justice.
Oh, yeah.
Which I do think is sort of true. I think it's true. Yeah. I'm also obsessed with justice.
Yeah.
And have no inclination to
administer justice physically.
Yeah, exactly.
Through fisticuffs.
Yeah, I'm not drawn to that. But
boy, am I.
I know. It's interesting that you feel like that because in other areas of life and in other conversations, you can recognize that when people are doing something mean to you or calling something out or whatever, it's not about you and it's about them, and that's a sad existence for that person, and you can have some empathy, but you don't have that in these cases.
No, like I'm smart enough to go, oh, the bully that's picking a fight with me at the bar has a lot of problems and issues, and he's the victim of probably a shitty dad. And I can recognize all that. That can be very present in my mind. And then given the choice to be a victim of that person's pathology or to fight back and defeat them, I will always pick that.
But you don't, the problem is it does not have to be, those aren't the choices.
You believe that. And in your experience, that is a choice where you can walk away. In my experience, if you start walking away, the guy fucking hits you in the side of the face, and then you fall down and he starts kicking you in the face. So many, many times in my life, you can't walk away. If you walk away, you're just going to get blindsided, and then that person's going to beat you while you're on the ground. So I disagree.
Okay. I just think it's more, I think it's more rare than you're giving it credit for someone to walk
in Los Angeles, 1,000%. I could live in Los Angeles for another 1,000 years and never, ever have to defend myself.
Well, I'm not even talking about Los Angeles.
I'm just saying here, culturally, 100%, I could avoid ever getting hurt in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I could not have avoided in my childhood getting hurt.
Well, I
could have stayed in my house. But I go to Aaron's house. You heard that story when Aaron was visiting. My first trip to Aaron's house to visit him as a new friend, we go to play hockey, and I just show up. He immediately, as soon as I step up, hey, motherfucker, I'm going to kick your ass. That's out of, he doesn't even know my name. I just walked up. I'm an outsider from their neighborhood. And that dude's either going to kick my ass or I'm going to fight back. Those are the two choices. Again, probably terrible childhood. I can have tons of compassion now as an adult. In that moment in the snow with 12 other boys around, I don't regret fighting back and winning. I'm very happy that that was the outcome.
Well, I guess I'm more speaking to adults because I think the reason these things happen with kids is because they see it happening in adults. So you mirror all these things that you're seeing in your parents and the people you're around and all of that. So that's probably true as a kid. And I agree. I don't really know what else you could have done in that circumstance. But the reason it's happening, I think, is because of a bigger issue that adults, I don't think, or I think it's probably very rare for an adult to be in a bar and for someone to come up completely out of nowhere and pick a fight where you had literally nothing to do with it and no.
Yeah, this is the rare opportunity where I can say that, yeah, that was your experience. That is definitely not the experience in bar culture in Detroit. I think most guys that have drank enough in bars in Detroit have had some stranger come up to them and literally start a fight out of nowhere because they're drunk and horny and it occurs to them they're not getting laid. So they shift immediately to then I'm kicking someone's ass. And there's a ton of those guys out there.
Okay. Well, that's also part of this problem then, that like people are
it's a
going
big
into bars
problem.
and expecting to get laid and getting upset that they're not. And it's all like these are things that we have to change in young people.
Absolutely.
I guess that's all.
That was all?
Well,
It ended on such a hot note.
okay.
All right.
That's it.